Good night. You sitting there suckering me on this line, playing hard to get.
Hello, everyone. We are now experiencing technical difficulties. Well, Dana is expecting, or not expecting, is experiencing. There we go. Technical. This does not bode well for this show because I cannot think of regular words. And I actually got a good night's sleep last night, I think. Anyway, Nick is doing something, and but he's here, and Dana was here. Then he tried to upgrade his bandwidth, and in so doing, ended up not being able to get back online at all. I'm still eating, but we wanted to start this thing so to let you know that we were really going to do a show. Leftover pizza from Mellow Mushroom. Stephanie, although she's not going to be on our show today, I don't believe, is trying to help out Dana through iMessage.
I'm back.
All right. Okay, so everybody, everything I just said, don't tell. No, I'm just kidding.
There's nobody else there, Jeff. There's nobody else there.
Well, we're on the air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's just you. There.
I know. I mean, there's no one else in the chat. No, there's plenty of people in the chat room, I'm sure. Dana has one bar on his phone. Tell him to get the phone out of the bar and get it upstairs. Now, Taffy Holden's Lightning. How am I going to turn that black and white? I suppose I've got to open it with... Where have you gone, Taffy? Taffy. Oh, there you are.
Pop out.
Open with Photoshop.
Boom.
Yeah. Oh, I better get into the chat room and things, didn't I?
Yeah, we have a show to do here.
I'm all keyed up now to.
Hello, Mike.
To get my Plaintail stuff done.
Hello, Philip Davis. Hello, Liz Piper. Graham, how you doing? Nico, hello. Masha, yeah. Pizza. What did Dana just say?
He can't get rid of the Hilton logon. Oh, you can't get to the Hilton logon, he says.
That's the same problem I was having at the Renaissance Hotel in Cleveland. A couple days ago.
All right, let's go filter, camera raw.
Michael Kuipers is hoping that you're feeling better this week, Captain Nick.
A little, Michael, a little. No, I won't say I'm 100% by any means, which is depressing in the extreme. All right, let's lift the shadows. Oh, it's not. It's dark in the shadows on that bit. Let's go. Color. Convert to grayscale. Yeah, that looks good. Let's give it a bit of vignetting. Make it look old-fashioned-y.
Okay.
And this. And give it a bit of grain. Yeah, let's give it some grain.
Hello, RH from Points Unknown. Okay, where was I? I was doing something here.
I think it was an APG show. Well, it could have been.
No, I was going to Patreon. That was it. To see what was talking about our new patrons.
Okay, edit, save, file, save,
okay.
save.
We have Yvonne Rinaldi and James Chen.
This is what I hate about
he's ragging on Apple. Has nothing to do with the operator at all.
No, nothing to do with finger trouble. All right.
Sorry, Tanya.
New window.
Hello, Dr. Bo Abramson. Bon appetit. This is a nice time for an APG show. I'm sure it is for you, Tony. You know what, about 5 o'clock your time? 5, a little after 5?
Yeah, it's perfect, really, isn't it?
And we're doing it just for you. It has nothing to do with when most of us were available.
No, of course not. Actually,
do you know who I am? I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Jeff, you're fuzzy.
Oh,
I, on the other hand, am as clear as crystal.
I'm fuzzy, huh?
Yep.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. Really don't.
Adjustments. Zoom and flip.
Do 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 do.
Must have bashed my camera. Let's try that.
Now, I know I can do something that will make me less fuzzy. But it would require me to make some configuration changes. But hey, since Dana's not here and he's still trying to figure out how to get online, why not? Okay, I'm going to mute my microphone.
Oh,
and y'all hang in there.
I got red nose. Oh, look. Perhaps I should change the color on my screen. See adjustments. Let's raise the gamma a little. Oh, yeah, that's a bit brighter. Excuse me. What is going on with Jeff's picture? Airplane mags, yeah. Oh, God. Actually, I could diagnose something really awful with a tongue that looked like that. Well, I'm all set. I'd have thought Dana would have stopped worrying about it by now, but Oh, he's got a problem with his signal speed. Oh no, we got only faced off some mic in the chat room. Oh, gold. What did we do to deserve that? Right. You're looking very big now, sir. Mm.
Do you know who I am? I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important. I have
very important.
many leather-bound books.
Many.
And my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
I keep wanting to say my father smells. Your father smells of elderberries.
All right. So how do I get my
incident Transylvania? There we go. Incident blah blah blah. Ghanaian pilot unleashes hot gas. That's the news of the week.
Okay. I want eyeglasses. I mean, the app.
I was going to say they're on your face, Jeff.
Okay, right there. Okay. Okay. Why aren't you showing up so I can
Well, I'm ready.
zoom out?
Or still ready, I should say.
Well, that's just wonderful to hear. It really is.
Good, good.
I just want my eyeglasses thing to show up so I can adjust the zoom level on my camera, but I can't seem to find it. Why not?
Crop dusting pilot's turn around is insane. Oh, I watched that pretty quick. Ice block falls from the sky. Well, at least it wasn't me.
You're just now looking at this stuff?
I read it all when it comes in. Mm-hmm. Which is one of the advantages of picking it up as people send it in. Because I take a look at everything that comes in, which is rather nice.
Okay.
How many separate crews? We have 15 crews on a Sydney to Dallas flight.
There we go.
Russian pilots rock.
There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it?
What have you done to your audio?
I don't know. What did I do in my audio?
It's just suddenly got a bit soft and fuzzy.
Really?
Well, it may not be you. Maybe me at my end.
Okay, people. Is my audio messed up now?
It was sort of really good.
Well, I switched from voice to studio. It's not good anymore?
Well, it's not as good as it was.
Let me switch back then. See if it changes. Has it changed?
Oh, yeah. Your volume has gone up, clarity has increased, and a nasty black background hash has gone. You're now crystal clear.
Well, then I'll leave it like that. How about? The only difference is that when I play music or something, sound clips or whatever, then they don't sound so great in the YouTube video. But whatever.
Yeah, Dave noticed the low hissing as well.
Is it still present?
No, it's gone to me anyway.
Okay.
But you're still fuzzy to look at. Look, that's
I'm still
just
fuzzy.
that's just natural look. I'm sorry, guys.
I don't know why I would look so fuzzy. Cancel. Come on. Okay. Why is my... There we go. I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi.
I've got a suggestion for our new producer. Is our new producer there?
I think she is.
Yes. Oh, yes, new producer is there. New producer, when I click on a feedback number, an item number, comes up as a tab on the web browser, but the number isn't then visible. It doesn't transfer it up. So let's have a look at number 1, naked news. When I look up at the browser, it just says naked news. It would be really nice if it said number 1, naked news. So if Jeff said we're going to
It doesn't work
story 8, then
No.
I would just look for 8. Well, well, it will work that way if you just put it in the title of the, like, naked news in Evernote. If you put 1.naked news, then it would appear on my web browser tab as number 1 as well. So I'd know which order the shows were in. The stories
God, what
were in.
a prima donna you are.
Well, I'm not the one that keeps jumping around the... Right. Let's see if that works. Okay. I think that's good. I think you have to change it in Evernote. Or did you do that?
No, you don't change it in Evernote.
Oh.
I got to change it in the show notes. Hang on, let me do this for. I'm just going to do one of them though.
Yeah, just see if it works.
We've never had this before. I don't know why you need that right now.
Well, no, I don't need it right now. But since Dana's not here,
see what I have to deal with, people.
Yeah, I know. Now look at that. One naked news. Now, if I re-click on that and because it hasn't updated, let me click on that.
No, it still doesn't show up as 1.
Where does it get when it gets the? No, it doesn't, does it? Now, I think you're going to have to put it in the title of the Evernote story.
Shoot.
But don't worry. I'll try and keep up.
But why do we need that on there? Okay.
What's the
now
highest?
Click on it again.
Okay. It's there. Story number 1, naked news. Hey, that's so cool. Hey, I really like that. Can we do that?
Liz, just ignore Captain. Don't worry about it.
That's brilliant. Well done, Liz.
But see, these numbers, it was a mistake to put the damn numbers on there.
Well, it does make it a wee bit easier when you kind of suddenly decide to go halfway down and pick up. You just go, we go to number 12 here. And I just look 12. Boom.
Okay.
I'm with you.
So, Liz, if you go in the news folder in Evernote, you can just put numbers in the actual title, as I did with number 1, naked news.
Oh, by the way, Liz says I'm making.
Anything else? Do you want some? Do you need some water or
a back rub would be nice?
Some grapes and perhaps a fan.
A fan? I've got lots of fans. Said he egotistically.
Yeah, it's actually a good idea.
Thomas in Asheville.
Look at that. Wow. Liz is good.
Oh, she's already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Audio feedback.
She's on it. All right, so let's get back over here to the saga with Dana.
Is he ever going to rejoin us?
I need to get to the internet choice, and I can't get back there.
Well, the times I've done that, I've just found the there's usually a helpline, and those guys just relog you on, and they usually give it to me for nothing.
He said he did an internet search to forget network. Well, I don't know if he said called. They can send maintenance to the room, but no tech support. Well, maintenance is not going to help.
No tech support.
Apparently, that's what he's saying.
This is since that young lady Hilton started doing rude things on the internet. I'm sure that's what causes this. Oh, Micah, you were that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. That's a very nice thing to say. See, you're much nicer than Captain Jeff.
Much. Well, I can actually vouch for that. I mean, I could agree with that. Mike is a lot nicer than I am.
There you go.
Sure. We used to call Mike the mayor of SQPN in that big worldwide community. Excuse me.
SQPN.
StarQuest Production Network.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something to do with the
network. That's where Catholic Pilot was born.
I thought it was something to do with the Roman army.
No, that's SPQN. That's one of the problems with Father Roderick selecting SQPN, because everybody who is Catholic or knows something about the ancient city, Vatican City, or ancient Rome will get confused. It was a bad selection of letters, apparently. He is on the phone with Wi-Fi help.
This is absurd.
Absurd.
What a lovely choice of words.
He spelled it correctly, though. That's good.
Yes, exactly. Perhaps he's got a spell checker. We
do apologize for the technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. For your listening pleasure, we can play some...
let's have some more Glenn Miller.
Well, no, let's do this first.
Fly me to the moon. Da-da-da. Oh, it's not. It sounds like an advertisement for Nimble Bread.
It is such a good night to kiss. It is such a good night to dance.
Oh, look. She's quick, isn't she? Hang on a minute. Let me just see if this is going to work now. Let me click outstanding.
It is such a good night to kiss.
Oh, look. I'm going to have to reopen every tab now because the effort that Liz has gone to. Isn't that brilliant? Oh, it's good, Liz. That's brilliant.
It is such a good night to kiss. It is such a good night to dance. It is such a good night to Scooby-Doo.
Were you talking?
No,
over this wonderful music?
Blathering.
See, the music probably sounds terrible because of I'm in voice mode, not studio mode.
Haven't you got any Ian Drury and the Blockheads?
What?
Haven't you got any Ian Drury and the Blockheads? Question mark.
What are you talking about?
He was a singer. He's dead now. Ian Drury.
Oh, don't know. Never heard of him.
Ian Drury. He sang "Hit Me with Your Rhythm Stick."
It was okay.
There we go. Main man Micah knows. Hit me with your rhythm stick. No, it's only one stick. He only had one stick, Micah. Otherwise,
apparently, my mind is going somewhere else.
I think that's where it was supposed to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. To update you with Dana's technical issues, he's getting the runaround from AT&T.
Aren't they the same people that fitted his Wi-Fi to his house
Yes.
They really got it in for him, haven't they?
Hey, yeah, Joe. Yeah, this is the guy, Dana Colton in
Yeah,
Smyrna,
that's
Georgia.
right.
Yeah, it's the same guy. Okay.
Yeah, that's screw. Oh, I love it. Hit me with your rhythm stick.
Hit me with your rhythm stick.
Je t'adore, ich liebe dich. Hit me,
Don't-
hit me, hit me.
Don't play that, by the way, because anything, of course, that I just played, I'm sure. Let me look at my email. I bet I already have an email that says, you have played something you're not supposed to play. Let's see. Have they ratted me out yet?
Oh, very good, my man Micah.
What's he say?
Je t'adore, ich liebe dich. My German accent is appalling, by the way, and I again apologize to anyone who comes from that fine country for the pronunciation of German words in my forthcoming, soon to be played, I hope, Plain Tale. I do my best is about all I can say.
I would just do a blanket apology to anybody that happens to be listening to our voices at this time, because we have been known to offend.
Really?
And we do, yes, and we do apologize if we are offending anybody out there.
Right.
If you were somebody contributing to the show and you decided because of us offending you, you decided not to contribute any longer, well, we're sorry, but we understand.
Yeah, we'll try not to do it again.
Yeah, we'll try not to. No guarantees.
And yeah, it's heartfelt apology.
Yeah, no, really, seriously. It's never our intent here to offend anybody, but apparently we just don't think about things thoroughly.
No.
People that know us, they know that we're not offensive people. Well, we don't try to be anyway.
No, that's true. Highest altitude you have achieved.
Come on. Why is this not changing size? Oh, okay.
Canadian Transport Minister orders officials to explore all options for reducing. That's a long title. Still very important.
Now you're complaining about the length of the title? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm not complaining at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curmudgeoning.
Liz, take notes here. Take notes.
Well, this will have to be HR, this one. Because HR is missing.
Which one are you to? Which are you referring?
Oh, I was number 8 in the feedback. That's a nice, short, concise title.
Really? That would be an HR issue?
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh,
that's more of a producer issue, I think. Actually, yeah, because she's the one that actually sent it in. So,
yes.
But I think it's the title of the article. So whoever came up with that title for the internet article
needs to be put up against a wall and shot.
Yes.
Come the revolution, they'll be first against the wall.
Let them eat cake.
Do you think he'll ever come back?
Well, you know what we could do? We could always start, and then if and when he comes back, then we can add him in.
Yeah, we could.
That's one way to.
Hang on a minute. I'm just drying my knickers, and I'll be. Tab open. I'm ready to go anytime you want, sir.
All right, let me see if I'm ready.
I'm here. I don't know. I don't know how long I'll be here. I am so mad right now.
Don't take it out on the listeners.
No, I'm not going to take it out on the listeners. I'm going to take it out on AT&T. You stink.
Well, at least they figured out how. So, what was the solution?
No, there isn't a solution. You may or may not get me the show. I mean, you're blurry. There is first guy I spoke to said, "Oh no," I went through 10 minutes of talking to the guy. "Oh no, I can't help you." Transfers me over to business services. They say, "Well, what business are you in?" I said, "I'm in the hotel business. I'm sitting in a hotel room, and you give me the business. I'm getting tired of this." Then the next thing you know, doesn't say anything and transfers me, and then next thing you know, hear a ring, and then I get some guy from India. "Hi, this is Sharish. Here, can I help
Oh
you?"
wait, okay. That's good. we just went through a whole thing about we're not trying to offend anybody.
No.
Yeah.
You know,
So
customer
don't
customer
do the accent.
Yeah.
Okay,
And if you,
a customer support representative, not from the United States of America, that
Very
was
good.
not so helpful, and then ended up hanging up on me because I was a little perturbed.
He hung up on you.
Yeah.
oh wow, that's pretty rare.
Wow. That's
Well,
bad.
when you tick off a Northeast person, as Nick was talking about the police officers up there in Boston, you kind of get the attitude, and I gave him that. I am so mad. So I am hoping that the free Wi-Fi that I enrolled in last night, when I checked the speed, it was showing about 5 up and 5 down. Now it's down to about 1 up, 1 down, and keeps on bouncing around. I was going to pay the $4.95 to get the better internet connection speed, and that's what that whole argument was about.
Yeah,
'cause
you know
I
what?
can't.
And what the irony is, that every time that I've, paid the extra for the enhanced speed, it still is crap. So anyway, I understand your frustration, though. I
I'm
really do.
sorry. I'm not taking out anybody but AT&T because
Yeah.
you know they were supposed to call me back last week for my fiber install.
They never did.
Never heard from them.
You can get fiber installed now. I have to eat cereal to get fiber.
Yeah, you can chew on some asparagus and broccoli and cauliflower. An occasional apple might help.
Or you can ask AT&T to install it.
You can ask AT&T to install it, and you can wait an awful long time, probably until I'm dead, before they install the fiber.
I'm ready now.
So I apologize to all the APG listeners for the delay in the show. I was actually sitting here, and we were all sitting here ready to go right around 11:30, except for technical difficulties with the hotel now.
It wouldn't be a show. It wouldn't be the APG without that. So,
No.
If everything actually works the way it's supposed to right off the bat, something is wrong. It's very wrong.
Yeah. Well, just about when I need a drink, and I've pretty much quit drinking, just like Jeff. I feel your pain with Lent.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to do that.
I know.
Been up for your health, I guess.
Yeah, I'm doing it for my health.
Okay.
Fly me to the moon.
All right, let's go
And
back
let
to here.
me
And
be amongst the stars.
more news.
Yeah, Liz just said I'm only audio now.
I can see
Oh, that
it.
was a while ago. Because we see you. Let's
And you're actually quite good quality in England.
people. Are you still getting only audio from Dana? Because Nick and I see him.
Ten, 9, 8.
We're not seeing him.
7.
That's
Oh.
odd. Okay, I'm gonna white box him.
Yes, can't see Dana.
We're not seeing him. Huh.
Only audio.
Well, maybe
It's only Liz is replying.
No, Mike.
And Bo says only audio. Yep. First Officer Mike, yes. What does that mean? Yes. Yes, you are seeing him. Yes,
I don't
you are
think
not.
Mike is really an airline pilot,
Yes, only audio from Dana. Cannot see Dana. Huh. That is strange. Because we
He's
can
there.
see him.
Yes, I can see him.
It looks nice.
I look like I need some makeup.
He's wearing a Red Sox t-shirt, Red Sox baseball, wearing a nice cap. What do you call that cap again?
I don't know.
It's a flat cap.
Flat cap is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And Tanya only sees me.
Well, I'm here. Perhaps you're the only one she wants to look at.
That's not true.
He's the only attractive one to look at.
Well, he's the only
not
one
true.
with decent hairstyle. Look at it.
Yeah.
So now, can you now see Nick? Because I've white boxed Nick. This is so strange. Why is it that they're only seeing me?
I don't know. Nick, say something. See if you're
Nick
okay. Tanya
can
sees
see
Nick now.
switches.
Jeff
Okay.
and Nick.
Okay, now I'm going back to automatic switching.
Liz sees Jeff and Nick, but only one at a time.
Okay, so when there was only 2 people on the Hangout on air, you only see the big screen. If there are 3 or more, then you get the little video thumbnails in the on the bottom of the screen. So obviously, the Hangout that you guys are watching is not seeing Dana, so it doesn't think that Dana's there, even though he is.
I'm right here. I promise.
I see him. Yeah, full screen there when he talks.
Yep, I'm right here. Looking
Okay.
at this beautiful day here.
Well, that is strange. Do you want to? Why don't you do this? Why don't you leave the Hangout and then come back, Dana, and see if we can get this Hangout on air to see you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now it's just Nick and I, and you will not see any. Well, I guess none of them saw it anyway. But this is the normal behavior. You only see whoever's talking.
Little boxes.
I'm back.
on the video.
Okay, Dana's back. Now let's see if we can see Dana. Oh, Graham says that if Dana flicks the video on then off, that will set up the boxes. Oh, I didn't know that. Well,
Okay, we can try that. Turn camera off.
mm-hmm.
Turn camera on.
Okay.
Or let's try this. Logitech camera. FaceTime. Hi. Logitech. Dave.
Okay.
Any better? Anybody see me?
Apparently not.
Still no Dana visually. Huh. Wow.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
You'll be there for the podcast.
Yeah, he's here though. He's here, so don't talk about him. And you'll hear him.
You'll hear me.
Okay. Very
I can
good.
see you two guys. You can
Yeah,
see me.
we can
That's
see you.
weird.
Very, very strange. All right. That's kind of loud again. And I'll lower the volume a bit. And try it again. Y'all are hearing all that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sounds good. Good volume.
Very, very good. Very, very good. Here we go. Finally. Only 45 minutes late. Almost. Oh, well.
Hang on a minute. Recorders.
Whew. Man, you're good. Recorders.
New session.
Good thing you said something.
Well, I just thought of it myself.
Oh, no.
What's the matter?
I don't know.
I'm running and I'm ready to clack.
Hang on. I'm not ready to clack.
And I wrote something on my clacker board for a change.
Well, you did.
Probably won't be able to read it anyway.
All right. Why is this not seeing?
Oh, Pushing Tin. That was quite an amusing movie. That I'm sure air traffickers think it's horrible.
I liked at the end. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't sound
Hello.
like you could hear me. So I like at the end of the movie how fake that was when he was twirling in the jet wash or the wake turbulence of an airplane at the end of the runway. Remember that?
I couldn't remember how I can't remember how it ends.
He's like spinning, like he was in a wash machine or in a jet wash or wake turbulence.
It does sound a bit fake.
Yeah, very much so.
That sounds real to me. Oh, shit. Keyboard.
I before E.
Someday I get rid of this hum on my.
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
What's that?
Apparently your name is I before E, except after N.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Did he misspell my name?
Oh, you got the echo.
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 Got echo?
Got echo.
Well, Jeff had echo.
Hello?
Hello?
I have echo?
I have echo.
Yes.
I have echo? Yes.
What?
What?
Why?
Dana, shut up.
You got echo.
I'm trying to listen to see if he's echoing still.
Hello? Oh, I hear echo too.
No, you sound fine to me.
You sound fine.
I know, but I hear it.
Oh, well, that's
And I don't
nice.
like
I
it.
don't care about you.
Who cares what
I know you don't care about me. Hello?
Think it's horrible. What's horrible? Oh, Pushing Tin. Yeah, I can understand why. I don't know whether it's RH or AG as opposing bases today, but I just call them rag. They still haven't laughed at my joke, by the way.
You blame them?
Hello? Do I still have an echo?
I can't blame them. No, say again.
Do I have an echo?
No.
Well,
Excellent.
either you do or you're saying things 3 times.
I'm saying it 3 times. Probably not the best way to test if you have echo. Do I have echo? Echo. Okay, good. So that is armed, and I'm recording now on Audition. And I have not changed my. This is still from episode 300. Okay. So you guys ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Close enough for government work.
It'll work. It'll work eventually. Okay. Now, let me get to the proper screen over here. Oops, that's not it. Here we go. Okay. Oh, let's see what happens here. What do you think?
Go for it.
Vamonos.
All right. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 312.
Flight 209, you are cleared for takeoff. Roger. LA, good morning. 123.9.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia. In today's episode, naked in the bathroom, an elk downs a helicopter, another unreliable airspeed event, more news, your feedback, and this week's plain tale, The Vengeance of Peenemund. So get all settled in, tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 312 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, and I'm an airline pilot, captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier based in Atlanta, Georgia. Also joining us today from across the pond,
1,000.
from his sprawling country estate outside of London, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, professional photographer, and currently captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Hello there, Jeff. Every time just before I'm about to speak, it says retard. Sometimes it kind of puts me off. Yeah.
I think that Nevsky, Kevin in Norway, that came up with that original work. I think he may have done that on purpose.
Yeah, I think he probably did.
Yeah, but
I'm lovely to be back on the show again. I'm back from Boston, where I looked for Dana, but I couldn't find him. But and that was a bit of a little bit of a story there. But well, I'm sure we'll come on to that later. Great to be back on the show again.
Great to have you back with us. And also joining us from somewhere in the coastal North Carolinas, a barbecue master, bourbon connoisseur, motorcycle riding pilot for a major U.S. legacy carrier, Captain Dana.
Well, hello from beautiful North Carolina today. Actually, Wilmington, North Carolina, very close to a place called Cape Fear. For those folks that don't understand what Cape Fear is, it's Cape Fear.
Fear.
Fear, that's correct. I'm sitting at the hotel looking across the river at a World War II battleship, the United States USS North Carolina. And that's my view for the day, to be able to be a part of the show. So I'm all smiles today and looking forward to another great adventure.
So you haven't experienced any technical difficulties at all today?
I'm putting that in the past now.
Okay.
I'm going to let that be, a bygone at this point, because if I let it bother me, I won't have a good show. So
okay.
We're going to just move on.
What do they say? Water under the bridge or something like that?
Yeah. Then I'm seeing two bridges with water under both sides of it. So we're in good shape.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right. Let's see. Oh, we don't have Dr. Steph with us today because sadly, we feel so bad for her. I think she's out on the slopes in Park City, Utah, skiing. No, I take that back. She's hard at studying or listening to a lecture or something like that at a medical conference. That I really
I know, really tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fancy having a medical conference at a ski resort. I just don't understand that.
Well,
perhaps the rooms are really cheap or something because everyone's out skiing. I don't know.
Well, good thing they're all doctors, because if one of them happens to run into a tree going down the slopes when they should be inside listening to the conference, then they'll all be able to help each other.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That's a Dana, can you turn up the gain a little bit on your mic, or is it all the way up?
It's pretty much all the way up there. Is that any better?
Yep, that's better.
That is.
Okay, it was a nose here from all the way up.
Okay, well, that made the difference, so I can hear you better now.
Excellent.
Let's see, and apparently, again, we're starting to dip down below that 50% level. Micah says it's water over the bridge. I've never heard that. Water over the bridge?
Well, that would be difficult. How does you get water? It would be a viaduct then. It would be water over the viaduct. I don't understand.
I don't think I can trust anybody in that chat room to tell us exactly what it is. So I'm going to ignore you, putting you on permanent ignore. Well, not permanent, temporary ignore. Okay, well, Captain Nick, you said you were in Boston this past week?
Yeah, I'm not going there again. Horrible place.
Yeah. A bunch of clones looking like me, talking like me, walking around, huh?
That wasn't so bad. I hit a few just to make myself feel better. But no, it was trying to get home, trying to get out of the damn place. They're just so clory. They want you to stay. they nearly scuppered my flight home. So I had a combination of problems: an aircraft with a snag and an oily smell in the cabin, no APU, which was probably the source of the oily smell, but hadn't been fixed. And someone just said it wasn't a viaduct, it's an aqueduct. Yeah, Bo, typical. Thank you, Bo, for correcting me.
Since we're like going right off track again, let me just say, like a bridge over troubled water.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Can I make an observation there, Jeff?
The bridge is over the water, so that's water under the bridge. Come on. What?
Hey, Jeff, you say you're going to say, but you didn't say you're going to sing. You should have warned me. I could take my earplugs out first.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what the heck were you talking about, Nick? Something about Boston?
I was talking about a smelly airplane. We had a smelly airplane.
Okay.
So
aviation related.
Yeah, and the lovely Acme engineers that were seeing us off weren't qualified to do ground runs. So when we got to the airplane, we had to stop bringing all the cargo and passengers on, get everyone off, close up, ground run all the engines, play with the bleeds to make sure that the smell had stopped, because they'd reported it on departure out of London and on taxi in to Boston. So we're going, what? It's obviously still occurring. Anyway, we couldn't make it happen, so we signed it off. And then, of course, we brought everyone on. The cargo was laid on because of the delay. We de-iced. God, it took forever. I thought Boston would be really switched on to de-icing. It took forever, and I'm not kidding.
They don't get snow there, so how would they know how to de-ice?
Yeah, well, I must admit, the guys that in the know say that whoever does it there, they have gone downhill over the last couple of years, which surprises me, because we think they get a bit of practice. By the by, we eventually got de-iced and anti-iced. I reckon we had about an hour's holdover looking at the amount of snow. Tried to push back. We had to start 2 engines on stand because we had no APU. So you've got to start up a couple of engines, get the electrics all fired up. Then you can disconnect external power, push back. The damn tug got stuck in the snow trying to push us back, because he couldn't push us against the idle power of 2 mighty Rolls-Royce Trents. So that was a wee bit disappointing. He jiggled us about a bit, as you do. And now he eventually gave up. And the guy on the headset said, well, you might actually be able to taxi away from here. But looking at all the traffic that is jammed up around us, trying to get past us, I said, well, not unless you clear all these vehicles away. And there were snow plows and lorries. And anyway, they did a reasonable job. They got all the vehicles back away from us. And we managed to taxi out of that tight little, because we were only halfway out of the parking position, out of the tight little spot. But of course, all these added delays had eaten into our holdover time. Then they changed the damn runway, because the runway we were expecting was now snowed over and closed. They gave us a runway, and good job we were careful about doing the fake figures, despite the fact we're trying to taxi out, etc., because that was too short. And if we'd tried to get airborne off that one, we'd have run off the end. So we suggested they gave us a different runway, which they accepted, but we're going to get delayed because that's the landing runway. It just went on. So with only minutes to spare, we eventually lined up on this runway. And I looked at it and went, oh my God, this is just solid snow. Because it was the sterile area, the undershoot before the display threshold, that was snowy. Once you get onto the runway proper, it was swept and de-iced, although they were about to close it because of the amount of snow that was coming down. So we accepted that, and the first 1,500 feet, say 1,000 feet, was snowy, and we just blasted off and got airborne quite safely and happily. But what it did mean was that we had sprayed a lot of slush and snow up into the wheel wells, something I didn't really thought about until we taxied in. And as we were parking up, and the aircraft's obviously warming up in nice warm London, not really, but you know what I mean. The engineer said, there's a whole heap of snow and ice falling out of your wheel wells. And of course we'd sprayed a lot of this stuff up inside the wheel
A little
wells,
bit of
which
Boston, now in London.
there you go.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Luckily, we didn't drop it on any postman. So
Yeah, we that's going to be something that we may talk about a little bit later in the show.
So
Yeah.
that was a bit of an event, that trip, I have to say. It was not a pleasant evening. A lot going on. I was very pleased to have another captain beside me because we had run out of first officers and he had been called out to fill in. He wasn't just a captain, he was a friend. He used to be my first officer in the old days, and now he's a training captain as well. So he knows his stuff, and actually we worked together very well because there was an awful lot to do, and particularly as we got time pressure towards the end, it would have been very easy to slip up on one of our procedures and make a mess of the whole thing. So I was very pleased with the trip as it went off. It was just one of those trips where you look back and say, I didn't like doing it, but we did it right. It was rather pleasing from that point of view.
So that's the Reader's Digest condensed version of all those events. If you want to hear Captain Nick talk about it in much more depth, you should be part of our Coffee Fund cadre. And then that's when you can get the crew logs. And he has how long was that crew log? About
35 minutes.
Something like that. But I mean, again, you really condensed it quite a bit there on this show. But if you want to hear a lot more detail about the whole situation that Captain Nick endured, please consider joining the Coffee Fund cadre by becoming part of or contributing to the Coffee Fund. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, there've been a lot of good crew logs lately.
Yeah,
Captain Jeff
just posted
from your team.
posted two this morning. One from Captain Dana and also from Dr. Steph. So anyway, if you want to hear some more behind the scenes kind of stuff going on at the APG, you should check that out. So since you've been home, Captain Nick, has it been pretty quiet for you?
Yeah, just did a crew log. Not a crew log, sorry, a plane tail.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got the rest of the month off, really, just until a Newark, just at the end of the month. So I've got about 5 or 6 days, which is very pleasant. Looking forward to that. And I can get over this cold, which is still sort of lingering. And I got some physio for my back yesterday. So hopefully I'll be properly fit by the time I next fly.
Excellent. So, Dana, catch us up with what has been going on with you.
My life's boring compared to that.
Boring is good, though.
Yep. And I did the crew log this week, which is my second edition. This time I didn't cover a specific topic that was requested, but I'm going to keep people tantalized and waiting. So stay tuned if you would like to continue to listen to what I have to say, I hope. And I'll be putting more out there as time goes on. And I tried a little something new with that crew log. I actually used my iPhone. I was in the Windsor Locks Airport, which is known as Bradley, which serves the two cities of Hartford and Springfield, Hartford, Connecticut, and Springfield. And they had an adapter for the iPhone that was available that allowed me to plug my microphone directly into it. So I was quite keen to see it on clearance, and then found out that they had 20% more off on that clearance. So it was quite a nice purchase. It worked out great. And that's the latest edition of my second edition of a crew log. So I hope to hear some feedback on that. And I'm trying to improve as we all are, and trying to make that better. I was listening here to Captain Nick about the ice in the wheel wells, the snow in the wheel wells. That could have been actually a much bigger issue, that if it had frozen the wheels around the wheels, certainly in a smaller type aircraft, certainly could have caused a problem with getting the landing gear down. So that came to mind when I was just listening to what Nick had to say. The interesting thing that I did have happen this week is I did something called a green slip, Jeff. I think that's probably, since I've been at Acme, maybe my 5th or 6th green slip in 11 years. They had taken my 2-day trip on Monday and Tuesday for training. And when they did so, I said, well, let me go ahead and throw a Hail Mary in here and see if I can get a green slip. As it turns out, it was the only green slip that was issued, and that was given out at 3:00 in the morning. 3:30 in the morning, they called. I didn't even know who I was talking to. Because I had gone. What? Yeah, sucker.
I said sucker.
So they
Let's
sent
see if
me
we
up.
can get somebody to answer the phone at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and the ironic part is I had don't call me before 4 a.m. in the preferences. Yeah.
Wow.
So they called me anyways, but that's all right. I took it, and it turned out to be a bit of a long day because we ferried an aircraft up to Kansas City. Spent the day in Kansas City waiting for them to fix the other aircraft, which had a flap and slat issue. Had been there for a couple of days, and in doing so, no, the dive club president is there in Kansas City as a mechanic, and was invited down to the maintenance room and spent the 6.5, almost 7 hours down there. Went off airport to go get some pizza for the crew, and when we came around Terminal C, which is closed in Kansas City, it's been closed, I think, roughly 3 to 5 years, I think is what he told me. Much to my surprise, there was this beautiful piece of artwork, a former Beauty of the Sky, which is still my favorite aircraft. The TriStar was sitting there. And it was in all its glory. It had its engines, had external power, air hooked up. And I go into a lot more detail on the on my crew log. So if you want to tune into that, I'll leave something for everybody to listen to. So I really enjoyed seeing the TriStar. I was just mesmerized. And this week, I'm not gonna give away what I bought this week, but hopefully one of these future shows I'll have it available to show. So, anyways, that's about it. Out here flying, had an easy day yesterday. Here for 32-ish hours in Wilmington, North Carolina. Speaking of Wilmington, North Carolina, brings back a lot of memories for me. Back in October and into November of the year of 2002. I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. That's when I began at Acme Junior my flying career. This is where I took my first flight in Brasilia in training during the overnight hours. We would work during the day and study and do our orals, and then they would actually put us in the aircraft to fly. In Wilmington, North Carolina, is the first time I ever flew a commercial airliner. So has been bringing back some memories, and it really hasn't changed here a whole lot. Some more restaurants, some really neat looking bars and restaurants here. A few of them ones that I remember from way back when, but downtown seems to be a little more lively than it has been in the past, and that was probably 13 or 14 years ago when the last time I was here. So kind of excited to be back here in Wilmington, enjoying a beautiful day. It's about 70, supposed to be as high as 78 record temperatures for this time of the year around here. And I'm having the unique ability to sit here and look outside and really enjoy the day.
Now, did you say we were, before the recording started, you sent us a photo of your perch and what you were looking out out the window, and then you said something about it's your captain's room. So is he there right now, or does he mind that you've set up all this stuff in his room?
Captain's room?
Yeah, didn't you say that?
No.
Okay, well, I need to look back.
Maybe I said it. I have no idea. Sometimes I'm suffering from the CRS. You know what CRS is? Can't remember stuff. Stuff, yes, family show. So anyways, I had the unique opportunity way back when I was flying for Acme Junior and flying the Brasilia and also the Barbie jet, meaning the CRJ. I had the unique opportunity way back when. I think they've stopped it since. They used to have a little shuttle water taxi that would go across the river over to it. And I didn't see that today, so it'd make it a lot more difficult to get over there. Although nowadays with Uber or a taxi, probably get over there via one of the two bridges that goes over. But what I am in referencing to is this beautiful battleship that's sitting across the river. It's called the USS North Carolina. I've had the opportunity to be on it before. It's one of my things I really enjoy doing when I go to overnights all over our country. I've been to most of the World War II era wartime ships, and it's really a unique experience. So if you're ever in the Wilmington area, and that includes not too far from Myrtle Beach, Cape Fear, the Outer Banks, certainly if you have any interest, come on over here and take a look at the USS North Carolina. It is a living artifact and beautiful to see. And quite honestly, sitting here, it's just something really nice to be looking at when I'm sitting here doing a
Well, I'm
podcast.
a living artifact as well. And
You are.
by the way, I figured out what happened there. You are not the one that said it was your captain's room. Captain Nick said captain's room. So in our little private exchange. So sorry.
Yes.
That's
Well,
why I got
future
confused.
captain. I haven't got the official training date, but it looks like I'm supposed to start on May 5th for that.
All right.
Getting
Very
nervous. Getting nervous.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. I was on oh shoot. I just remembered that I recorded something and I forgot to I'll have to wait until next show to put that in. Oh, actually what we'll do. No, here we go. I'll just pretend I have the audio and that we're all going to listen to it together. And then I'll come back in. So if you're watching this video, don't be perplexed. Well, really not much we could do about that.
Too late.
Yeah. Anyway, this last trip that I had was a very nice trip. Left on Sunday. It was just one leg the first day, 2 legs the next day, 2 legs the third day, and then yesterday just 1 leg home. So it was a very easy trip to fly. And on, what was it, the third day, as I was walking off the airplane in Milwaukee, I saw this person, and I'm thinking, he looks familiar to me. And then he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Captain Jeff." And it's Gary Cunahan. And Gary, the reason why he looked familiar is because he was at the Wings Over Pittsburgh gathering. And we had breakfast with Gary at that little, remember that little breakfast place that we went to, Nick?
Oh, yeah, the one with the sloping car park.
Yes, and it had a nice.
and
We were
all
kind of
that.
on the back deck, and you could outside, and we were listening to some of the air show jets practicing.
Yeah, it was a good spot. I loved all the paraphernalia on the walls,
Mhm.
British rock bands and things.
Right. So Gary joined us there for breakfast, and he hung out with us the whole time we were there. Anyway, it was him, and kind of caught me by surprise because I didn't know that he was going to be there. And so we walked together toward the front, and I said, "Hey, you want to, if you're going to be in town here," because he doesn't live in Milwaukee, he lives just over the border in Illinois. And I said, why don't we, get together for dinner a little bit later in a few hours? And he said, that's great, because I guess he has family in the area and he was going to run some errands and such. And so we did get together. He came by the hotel, the beautiful Hilton Hotel in downtown Milwaukee, and we recorded this. Yeah, it was great meeting up with Gary again. As we always say, best part of doing this whole APG show is, interacting with the APG community. So, Gary, great to see you. Hope to see you again soon. Perhaps Oshkosh, not this year, but perhaps the following year, and who knows where else. All right. Anything? I'm trying to think if there's anything else to mention. I think we have the website back on track. Not exactly sure. It's not 100%, but it's 80%, we'll say. And we're still working on making sure that is running smoothly. And
we really expect to get the Plain Tales page up perhaps by the end of the month.
yes, I'm hoping so. I have some days off. I'm not scheduled to fly again until March 5th. I do have a request to pick up some extra overtime flying, but I'm pretty full for the month. I've done a lot of flying already this month, so there's probably a good chance that I'm not going to fly until March. So I do have some time off. I was able to do a little bit of work on the Plain Tales page on the website on this trip, and hope to do a little bit more work again in the coming days, and hopefully we'll have something good to tell you about that by the next show.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. Well, let's move on, shall we, to the coffee fund.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh, yeah. As the Coffee Fund singers, the Coffee Fund chorus sing in the background the Java Jive. Let me tell you a little bit about what the heck this Coffee Fund thing is. It's your way, if you have the resources to do so, to support the show financially. And a couple different ways to do that. One is what we call the Coffee Fund Classic method, which is basically using PayPal to make a one-time, two-time recurrent donation, however you want to do it. And the other method of contributing to the show is via Patreon. You can become a patron via Patreon. And again, information about how you can do either or both methods is available over at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And since the last show, the Coffee Fund Classic method, we have Karim, Chris Randall, Alexandre Lyons, and Richard Adams. Hope I did that. Maybe it's Alexander. It's Alexandre. So that's what threw me off there. Alexander Lyons and Richard Adams. Again, they use the Coffee Fund Classic method. And we have a couple of new patrons over at Patreon. Yvonne Rinaldi and James Chen. So thank you for becoming producers of the show by using or becoming a patron at Patreon. And that's about it. So again, check it out over at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee if you want to become part of the Coffee Fund cadre. I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Boy.
Stand by for news.
An Alaska Airlines flight from Anchorage to Seattle was forced to make a U-turn Wednesday due to a disruptive naked passengers, officials said. And this is from FoxNews.com. The naked passenger reportedly locked himself in the plane's restroom, took off all his clothes, and refused to comply with the flight crew's instructions. Alaska Flight 146 from Anchorage to Seattle returned to Anchorage due to a passenger not following the flight attendant's instructions.
So they didn't mind him being naked. It's just that he wasn't doing as he was told to.
Exactly. That was just, ancillary to the whole. While no emergency was declared, the decision was made to return to Anchorage, the airline's spokesperson said. The FBI and airport police were present at the airport shortly after the plane landed in Anchorage. Kate Daniluk, another passenger on the flight, said she knew something was wrong because flight attendants kept walking back and forth in the aisles wearing rubber gloves. It's exciting. The police came on and took him out the back door, Daniluk said. The police came on and took him out the back door. Okay, great. I'm glad they had
you have a back door in a 737?
Yeah, they do have a back door, but I don't think it has any stairs connected to it. So they must have rolled up some air stairs or something.
Oh, right. Okay. Perhaps they just tossed him out. I don't know.
Oh, that could be. Watch out. The first step's a doozy.
Imagine him sliding down the slide.
No, I can't imagine. Oh, you probably get
little
stuck.
slide burn.
Oh, dear.
Can I say the obvious here?
Sure.
It says back here the would not follow flight attendant's instruction while no emergency is declared. Going back a little bit further, took all of his clothes off in the restroom and refused to comply with the flight crew's instructions. So, am I missing? Is this a misreport again? Did this person ever leave the restroom? Because I was reading, naked passengers reportedly locked himself in the plane's restroom, took off all his clothes, and refused to comply with flight crew's instructions. So, if he's naked in the restroom, what's wrong with that?
I don't know. Perhaps there's something missing here to the
Exactly.
To the
I think it's a misreport. I would imagine that this person came out of the restroom or exposed himself.
Yeah.
In some form. Because how would they know that he was naked in the restroom?
Oh, the cameras that we have, the secret cam.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I'll edit that out.
Good idea.
I just want to correct take time to notice that the reporting here, again, the way that they wrote it is probably not exactly correct.
Well, you know what?
I have very little patience for stupidity.
That is not what I intended to play, but that works.
Is that me or the reporter?
I was hitting the B key on my keyboard, and that's supposed to ring the bell. But apparently, I don't know what happened to my bell sound effect. It must have gotten jumbled up. Anyway, the first time, this is the very first time on our show that we've actually read a report that was inaccurate. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not the first
time. Hang on a minute. I think if you just read on a bit, it would all have come clear, because it says from the police, there was a subject in the aircraft that had barricaded or locked himself into the bathroom, the lavatory. The flight attendants did find that the subject was naked. So it sounds like he locked himself in. When they unlocked it and forced their way in to get him out, they found he was naked. So
yeah,
there you go.
I guess, and it makes sense then that the reason why they diverted wasn't because the man was naked, but because they were probably telling him to get out of the bathroom because they were concerned that this man is in the bathroom. What is he doing? And so he was not following their instructions, and so they took the precaution of diverting instead. So yeah, I guess it does kind of make sense.
Turn around for that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Neither do I. I'm not sure.
Unless there was some reason, to think that this guy was like a terrorist and he was doing something, like setting up a bomb or something in there. I don't know.
A naked bomb.
Naked bomb. He was a naked bum assembling a naked bomb.
I was thinking about a bomb that would come from a bum. So
yeah. Ooh. Okay, let's not go any further there.
No, I'm not going any further. No, not saying one extra word.
Okay, very good. Let's see here. How about the next one? Item number 2. Hi, ABG community. This is from Louisiana Steve. He says, beware of elk at altitude. And he refers us to a story in the USA Today. Leaping elk crashes low-flying research helicopter.
Whoa.
Helicopter, and they have a picture here of the downed helicopter. The helicopter was trying to capture an elk, and the elk brought it down. The elk jumped into the chopper's tail rotor as the aircraft flew about 10 feet, 3 meters above ground in a mountainous part of eastern Utah, with its crew trying to drop a net on the elk. The elk did not like the fact that they were trying to drop a net on it, and it jumped up, hit the tail rotor, and spun the thing out of control. And the 2 people on board the helicopter weren't seriously hurt, but we can't say the same of the elk. He or she died of its injuries Monday afternoon.
That's a shame. When I first read this, all I could think about was that cartoon I've seen many times of a pair of pilots in an airliner flying along, and in the middle of the clouds in front of them, there's a mountain goat. And the captain's saying, it's funny seeing a mountain goat here at this altitude.
Yeah,
and all I could think was just take out the mountain goat, put it in an elk.
Yeah, exactly. That's my favorite Far Side cartoon, actually.
Yep.
What do you suppose an elk is doing, or a mountain goat is doing up here in the clouds? Oh, boy. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
We're getting a few oh dear comments in the chat room.
Very clever chat room.
Yeah,
very clever.
Yeah.
Thanks, Louisiana Steve, for that. Let's see. Now, we talked about a an event, an incident, an accident, actually, killing everybody on board of an Antonov AN-148 that crashed outside of Moscow on the last episode, and saw this in the, I think this is from the Aviation Herald, not sure, although it doesn't look like it's formatted that way. Should have done
This
it
is
better.
flightglobal.com.
Oh, Flight Global. Okay, thank you. Yep, that's what it is. Russian investigators have disclosed that 7 instances of unreliable airspeed indications involving Sukhoi Superjet 100s, not the same as the one that crashed that we talked about the last time, were recorded over a 2-day period of heavy snowfall at Moscow. And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce.
Sheremetyevo.
Okay, that sounded pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I made it up.
Oh, well, good job. So the accident investigatory agency that I was trying to recall on the last episode,
Aviation.
They have disclosed or said that the incidents were each characterized by different speed readings between the captain's and the first officer's side, either during the takeoff run or the initial climb. In all cases, which occurred over the 4th through the 5th of February, crews opted to abort, takeoff, or return to the airport. The incidents occurred among that 2-day during that 2-day period, and they are among several safety events detailed by the regulator over the period. And apparently, that time frame in that part of the world, they were experiencing some pretty nasty winter weather. The
Rosaviatia.
That said that the superjets could have been, or the icing on the superjets could have been caused by the freezing and heavy snow of water trickling down from the crown of the fuselage and the cockpit windows. So, there were some more events related to blocked air sensors that, again, brought down that Antonov 148.
Yeah, just another threat worth briefing when you're going to make an approach into foul weather like that. It's just worth covering these things and making sure you're clued up on what to do if you get it happen. It could happen to almost any aircraft if you get it severe enough precipitation. It could momentarily block a pitot tube.
Well, you go to episode. Go to news item number 5. This is from the Aviation Herald. A Transavia, France, 738 Boeing 737-800 at Paris on the 8th of February. Let's see, the IAS, AOA, and ALT disagree. They were accelerating from Paris's Orly, heading to Marrakech, Morocco. They were accelerating through 90 knots for takeoff on runway 24 when the crew received a message, IAS disagree. The crew elected to continue the takeoff. The aircraft was in the initial climb when the crew received messages, AOA disagree, which is a angle of attack indicator, disagree, and ALT or altitude disagree. The crew stopped the climb at flight level 90 or 9,000 feet and returned to Paris for a safe landing on Orly's runway 26 about 40 minutes after departure. The French BEA have rated the occurrence as an incident and have opened an investigation. Now, interestingly, here at the bottom, it says the previous evening, while en route on a ferry flight from Norwich in the UK to Orly, following maintenance in Norwich, the AOA probe had encountered a first failure. So it looks like they didn't fix it. Apparently.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a combination of sources of information. So IAS and altitude come from air pressure. AOA is usually a separate angle of attack vane, a little wing that sticks out and measures your angle of attack. So it sounds like it might have been whatever concentrator, whatever little computer they have that combines that information and displays to the crew that might have been the fault. But so I can't think of any other reason why you get all those 3 messages combined.
Yeah, I don't either. That's kind of odd. But I guess the point that I wanted to, the reason why I included it in the news folder for this episode is just to, again, re-emphasize the fact that we as pilots need to know, if you find yourself in a situation where you are unable to abort and you have to take the airplane in the air, knowing those pitch pictures and power settings could save your life.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Just don't away, guys.
Number 6. And this happened a little bit ago, February 13th. We're recording the show today. I think it's the 22nd. There was a United 777-200 over the Pacific, flying from San Francisco to Honolulu. And they were about 45 minutes prior to their estimated landing in Honolulu when part of the right-hand engine separated from the engine. So the engine was a Pratt & Whitney 4077. The aircraft continued to Honolulu for a safe landing on runway 8 right about 45 minutes later. Passenger Maria Balashi reported there was a loud bang about 45 minutes prior to landing, followed by the whole aircraft shaking. She saw parts of the engine cowl at the engine inlet missing and took photos. And if you'll look at this article from the Aviation Herald in the show notes, you'll see the same pictures. And I believe there's also a video to kind of give you an idea of how violent, if we have a engine that's experiencing a breakup like this, how severe the vibrations can be and shake the entire airplane, even a big airplane like a 777. The NTSB have dispatched investigators on site and have opened an investigation into the occurrence, described as in-flight loss of engine cowling. I think they're probably going to find that it's more than just the cowling. There were some pictures in a different article I was looking at showing the part of a fan blade or perhaps an entire fan blade missing. So that may have been.
I had read it was a fan blade that had gone, and that had probably departed through the engine cowl and taken the cowling with it. But yeah, that's nasty.
Yeah, and at least they weren't out over the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They were basically just about ready to start their descent into Honolulu anyway, which is
but it's also just a testament on how awesome or how well these aircraft are really built.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people listening to this may already know this, but engines are actually designed, if they become catastrophic, to fall off the airplane. They get to a point of stress that they'll just depart the aircraft instead of taking the whole entire aircraft down. At least that's what the design is. So taking a look at this picture, obviously it looks pretty gruesome, and fortunately it didn't do a whole lot of damage, at least that I can see, to the wing. I don't know, haven't seen any pictures of the wing, but certainly not catastrophic damage. So it's just a testament to the engineering, that they do engineer these aircraft very well. PBS, which is public broadcasting, actually did a whole series on the manufacturing, testing, design of the 777. It was a very, very good series. So it's kind of where I'm deriving some of my input regarding the strength of these aircraft and how well designed they are. So you can't plan for everything, and when you do have unusual circumstances like this, it just goes to show that somewhere, someplace, somebody's designing these aircraft to survive things like this.
It's always interesting to read some of the comments, although some of the comments in these Aviation Herald articles are completely ridiculous, and people making the comments have no idea what they're talking about. But then on the other hand, there are times when you get some pretty good information from people, and they sound like they know what they're talking about, and they do discuss the fact that these giant engines on the 777 do have a system of pins, shear pins, that mount the engine to the pylon and are designed that after a certain amount of oscillation and vibration that they'll actually shear and allow the engine to completely separate from the wing, which is pretty interesting. But at least the vibration would stop.
Well, yeah, and the whole design of that is that it doesn't vibrate so much that it causes the aircraft to start coming apart. So that's why it's really designed.
That'd be a bad thing.
Yeah,
right.
Not a good thing.
Speaking of not a good thing, what are 2 words that come to mind that should not be put together? How about
Steph and Bear?
No. How about Dana and Mad Dog?
Ah.
Oh.
But wait a minute. Now, just so you don't think that I'm picking on our co-host here, Dana Colton, I'm not talking about Dana, our Dana. I'm talking about the name of an airline, a Dana Air McDonnell Douglas MD-83, registration 5 November Sierra Romeo, India, performing flight 363 from Abuja to Port Harcourt in Nigeria with 44 passengers and 6 crew, landed on Port Harcourt's runway 21 in poor weather conditions at about 1910 local, overran the end of the runway, went through the localizer antenna, and came to a stop on soft ground about 405 meters or 1,330 feet past the end of the runway. The aircraft was evacuated. No injuries are being reported, and the aircraft sustained substantial damage. Nigeria's airport authority reported that Flight 363 overshot the runway, probably because of heavy rain accompanied by strong winds and storm. And the airline reported that the aircraft skidded off the runway as a result of very stormy weather and severe winds. That's kind of a repeat of the previous paragraph. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the weather. It doesn't, I mean, they do say that there are thunder showers and a thunderstorm reported around the time frame of the incident, but the winds, at least the reported winds on the METAR, don't look that bad. They're just saying 240 at 13, 230 at 7, and it's a 221 runway 21. So it's not like they were extreme crosswinds or anything odd, but perhaps the heavy rain made it so that they couldn't see very much. And I'm gathering or guessing that the runway is probably not grooved. So,
that's exactly what I was thinking, and that's what I was going to bring up is was the runway grooved, and more than likely not, and probably or may have been a spoil issue.
Yeah, possibly.
We know that if the spoilers don't come up, it doesn't tend to destroy the lift, so the aircraft will have a tendency of hydroplaning, and that certainly sounds like what's happened here. We don't know obviously yet, but
yeah,
it's
now it looks like they did eventually come up though, Dana. One of the pictures in the article is showing the spoiler panels deployed.
I see that,
but maybe they didn't come up right away in the initial portion of the landing. Good point. But
I'm looking at the photograph of the aircraft line there. If you look back at the runway, there is a narrow channel of reflection on the middle of the runway, and the outside portions of it look like they're covered in something, whether it's water or mud or what, I don't know, but it looks like there's only a narrow portion of the runway that looks ordinary, looks normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what was wrong with the surface of the runway, if that might be just the way that photograph's taken.
I don't know. I agree with you. It does look odd because it's almost like the opposite of what you'd expect to see. You'd expect to see all the dark stuff in the middle.
Yeah.
Where the tire rubber deposits and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's odd.
And going back to your comment, Jeff, about the spoilers, if you take a good look, you'll it looks almost like I don't know. It's hard to tell whether it's just the outboard spoilers, because if you look at the inboard,
it doesn't look like the inboard ground spoilers.
So they may have it may have been a non-spoiler deploy, and all they did was reach and grab the spoilers and didn't reach up, backing up. So all they did was bring the flight spoilers out. That's what it kind of looks like to me.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. Good catch. Perhaps they didn't have the auto spoiler system armed.
Correct. So we can always be Monday morning quarterbacks. I'm just stating what I think would be the cause here.
Yeah.
Now I used to fly under there regularly. So that was an airfield we treated with a great amount of respect because of the problems associated with it and the infrastructure or lack of around it. So it was a captain's only landing, and we only ever operated there in daylight hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does it say? I didn't scroll all the way, but how long is that runway?
I don't know.
Nearly 9,000, 8,800, somewhere on that.
Yeah. So if it's covered, if it's rain covered, non-grooved, It's slippery as ice skating.
Oh, I'm wrong. It's 9,800.
Oh, okay. So it's almost 10,000. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to sea level.
Perhaps they didn't touch down,
Touchdowns
where they should have. Maybe they, touched down further down, whatever. It's a sad picture, that first one in the article, showing that little mad dog out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
And
he's
it's
got a long
probably-
way off the end, didn't he? He must have been traveling still when he ran off the end, because normally, unless you go in a fair lick, you pull up quite quickly in that grass and mud and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but look at how tough that mad dog is. It's still in one piece.
You know what, though? I think that was probably its last flight. I think it was a 27-year-old mad dog, initially owned by Alaska Air. Oh, well. So sad. Save the mad dogs. We need to get that T-shirt. I keep forgetting to order that. But
another one bites the
maybe
dust.
that would have made a difference.
Another one down. Another one.
Yep, another one bites the dust. And finally, news item number 7. Ghanaian pilot? Is that how you pronounce that? Ghanaian pilot
Yes.
unleashes hot gas on Nigerian thieves.
Love this.
Family show.
Okay, a Ghanaian pilot of Africa World Airlines unleashed hot gas to foil an armed robbery attempt by thieves in Nigeria as they attempted to burglarize the Accra-bound CRJ jet. Robbers operating within the perimeter fence of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. How did I do? On Tuesday, I had to pause for just a tiny moment there to make sure I pronounced that correctly. Tuesday evening, the robbers sought to break into the aircraft and steal the luggage of passengers. This brazen attack and attempt to burglarize a Ghana-bound CRJ jet was the latest attack upon an aircraft preparing for takeoff from Nigeria's biggest city. The burglars opened a cargo door of the CRJ aircraft, tore up the cargo hold bag holders, and tried to steal passenger bags. And I don't know if it says this in the actual article, but I have a feeling it had something to do when the airplane was actually taxiing out to the runway, that they come out from the perimeter fence and try to open up the cargo, but it doesn't say that in here. So maybe that's just my imagination. But
I've read a few others that have mentioned that it's not an isolated incident. Jeff, it appears that, back in December last year, a private jet was attacked on the runway 18 right of the airport by unknown bandits.
Okay.
They say it was taxiing to the hangar. The jet was from Istanbul. The pilot, Captain Emma Hearing, reported that the rear of the aircraft was open while taxiing. 2 weeks later, another theft reported on the airport's runway. This involved 2 known Nigerian musicians. So Tiwa Savage and Wizkid were on the aircraft.
I thought they were the ones breaking into the airplane.
No, I think they were the stars of Nigeria who were on the aircraft. A Challenger arrived at Lagos in December and was taxiing slowly to the hangar when the cargo compartment was burglarized. The jet had slowed to allow an Ethiopia Airlines cargo plane push back. And then in February, pilot in command of Air Peace Flight, or an Air Peace Flight, noticed his cargo hold door light showed for 15 minutes in the cockpit. And I think he was at the holding point of runway 18 right, waiting for the signal from the tower to take off. And he'd had his cargo bay rifled through. So it sounds like they're having a bit of a spate of these. What is interesting, though, is that the airport authorities appear to be saying that it's all a bit of exaggeration. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority poo-pooed Air Peace. Poo-poo.
It's all poo-poo.
The Air Peace report. I mean, I love this reporter alleging that somebody might have opened the cargo hold of its aircraft, and that it may not, and that the report was dismissed as raising false alarm. That I'm not too sure whether that would be fair or not. But this used to happen a lot, apparently, at Lagos in the 90s. And the government at that point had a shoot to kill policy for anyone that came inside the perimeter of the airport. And I've already told a couple of times, I think on previous shows, that I've been rolling for takeoff and had somebody trot across the runway in front of me, not an airport worker, just some bloke who'd come in over the perimeter. And of course, if people are getting access to airliners that are on the taxiways, they could only have to go a little bit further to get to the ones that are on the parked up against the terminal or on stands. And the potential is, of course, that they could leave an explosive device on board. That would be pretty devastating. And of course, Nigeria does have its own problems with terrorists in the north of the country. So we know it's a volatile country, and it just adds yet another layer of concern on top of everything else that exists there. But what I really want to know is, how did this guy get rid of the burglars with hot gas? Where did that come from?
That is the question.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can surmise from that is that maybe the cargo fire suppression, like the halon in the cargo compartment, somehow was interpreted by the journalists as hot gas. I don't know.
Yeah. If we cranked up the temperature in the cargo bay, it would take quite a while, and it wouldn't get that hot.
No.
But I'm going, well, what do you reckon, Dana?
Well, I reckon that if that's the actual photo of the aircraft, that they keep on referring it to the CRJ jet, which is not correct. It's an ERJ jet.
That's right. That's an Embraer, isn't it?
It's an Embraer
45,
probably a 135, maybe a 145. But yeah, I would agree with that. It's probably the halon gas.
Okay.
That's would be my guess. If they have a fire, cargo fire suppression system on the aircraft. But
well, the next time I'm in the cockpit, I'm going to look for that hot gas button. Maybe I've missed that.
Well, I was thinking of those cars in South Africa that had those flamethrowers built into them, so to stop carjackings. And you could press a button and it would shoot flame out the side of your cars in case someone was coming up to car trying to carjack you.
That's cool.
Well, hot, actually.
It's very hot.
It is very hot. But apparently the carjackers just started shooting people from like 15 feet away instead of walking up to the side of the door. So I don't know which would have been better, just giving up your car or being shot from a distance.
Traffic jam, no problem. Just like burn everything around you for about a 50-foot perimeter.
That'd be the way to go.
The other thing I was thinking about hot gas is engine exhaust gas.
Yeah, but
really,
that'd
be pretty hard to try to aim it at them because it's a fixed object.
Yeah.
But if they're behind the engines getting into the cargo, then perhaps you could rev the engine up.
Yeah,
you could create a bit of a blow that might
do a little donut out there, And
but this is something my old man used to talk about back in the 70s. Admittedly, he was talking about Nairobi, not Lagos, but it's not exactly a new technique to get hold of valuables.
Wow. Crazy place. We can see now why it's one of your favorite places to go.
Yeah, that's right. Always something new.
All right. Well, that's it for the news. Now it's time for the best part of the show. Your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. Let's start with number 1 from Ray, how to have fun as a pilot. And he sent us, that's Ray Williams from My Neighbor to the North in Alpharetta. He sent a link to a YouTube video, and the title is "This Crop Dusting Pilot's Turnaround is Insane. Just watch." And so you'll have to watch the video yourself. But it's an interesting video. It looks like, is that a Pilatus airplane? Do you have any idea what kind of airplane that is, guys?
No.
It's a very small airplane with it looks like a Pratt turboprop, Pratt and Whitney. What's the famous PT6?
PT6.
Yeah.
That's definitely the engine.
Yeah, and this thing is all set up for crop dusting. But the impressive thing about it is this guy comes in and lands in almost like a bowl, and then he kind of comes up to the top, the crest of this bowl on one end, and turns the airplane around very quickly, and then this contraption comes over with a little hopper assembly on it in a bag, and it fits into a hole in the back of this airplane and dumps the insecticide or pesticide or whatever it is spraying, and like within just a few seconds the thing is on its way back down the bowl of a grass runway and is off to go spread its stuff. And
yeah, it was pretty slick, isn't it?
Yeah,
pretty slick.
Have quite a system worked out there. Looks pretty amazing.
I'd be wanting to get out and have a pee and a sandwich in between.
Yeah, you're not going to have time for that.
Definitely not.
All right. So thank you, Ray, for that. Stuart Aslett, I believe, is the Stuart that sent this one in. And it says, watch the moment that ice block falls from the sky and nearly hits a London street. And
street cleaner.
Or street cleaner, I'm sorry. It was cut
hit
off.
The street, no problem.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, but my headline was cut off there. And so there's some pictures here in the article, and I think also some video, and in the video they actually show it over and over again and kind of do some stop motion you can see this big huge chunk of ice just almost falling straight down from somewhere in the sky. And I think in the article it says that it looks like it could have been about a 20 kilogram chunk of ice. And Liz made a good point. She said, well, Captain Nick on the last show was talking about all that stuff in the wheel wells of his Airbus. And she's wondering, because this is not blue, if it had a blue tinge to it, I might think that this perhaps had something to do with the lavatory system. Although I guess the more modern lavatory systems on airplanes now, they probably don't use the blue stuff. They just use regular.
No, we
water,
don't use
right?
blue juice. We just use a regular, ordinary clean water.
So
start soft.
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it came from the wheel well of an Airbus 350?
Well, not my one, thank the Lord. But it's interesting because as part of the program to try and get us to stabilize our approaches earlier, to try and reduce one problem, which was not landing in the right distance and possibly landing on runways too short and running off the end, this kind of thing. We were being told, right, gear down at like 3,000 feet, which is quite a long way out. Whereas most airports, there's often not a lot of, and certainly in the Heathrow on the 27s, you're over fields and things when you're getting closer to the airport. So, it makes you think perhaps putting the gear down later might be better. There's one airport I used to go to, Tokyo's Narita airport, where the government stipulated that you had to have your gear down by 14 miles if you were coming in on one of the northerly runways, because they had an incidence of ice. I don't know what had happened. I don't know the details, but they were obviously sensitive to it. So they said you had to lower your gear by 14 miles. So if ice fell from your aircraft, it would fall over the ocean. And I remember once I got a letter, quite an interesting one, because it looked like it had come from the Emperor of Japan. It was written in very formal text and had a very formal stamp on it and mentioned his name. So I went, oh, what's this all about? And it was because apparently we'd infringed that 14-mile limit on one of our approaches in there. So they take it quite seriously. On the other end of the runway, of course, it doesn't make a difference. You can't. There's no ocean there to drop it over, so you just put it down whenever. But apparently the CAA receives about 30 reports a year of ice falling. So there you go.
Wow. Yeah, I guess their thinking is the further out you are, the less likely you're going to hit anything. It's probably not going to be a populated area.
In Narita, it was because you're over the ocean at 40 miles. But I'm thinking at some airports, closer in, you're better off lowering it because you might be over fields rather than over buildings.
Right, and it's not going to have as much time to gather as much energy as it might if you were up
exactly. But I think anytime you get airborne from a contaminated runway, you're going to face this possibility of having slush and ice and snow sprayed up into your wheel wells that can drop out later on in the flight when you've obviously lowered the gear. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's any way around that. I mean, do you ever have a procedure where you leave the gear down to let snow and ice fall off before you raise it?
No.
Neither way. Because after all, it's not actually on your gear. It's usually been sprayed up and jammed itself in amongst the pipes and all the gubbins on the inside of the actual cavity where your wheel retracts into. So it gets jammed up there. Leaving the gear down isn't going to make a difference. I don't know of a way to get rid of that. All I can hope is that because it usually gets pretty damn cold during a long flight, so it's down to like that ice would be down to like -20 or -30. It's going to take a long time to thaw. So it will, generally speaking, it won't start dropping out until you've been on the ground for some time after you land.
Mm-hmm. Well, very interesting. So yeah, check out. Yes, Dana.
And I mean, you were talking about earlier in the show, Nick, is the fact that you landed in London from Boston last week, and your engineering came up and said, "Look how much snow and ice you have in your wheel wells." I mean, so
yeah,
it's a perfect example.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why we mentioned that earlier.
Mm.
All right, number 3, Miles. How many separate crews, both the flight crew and support crew, are involved in ultra-long flights, such as reaching Los Angeles from Dubai nonstop, or Sydney to Dallas nonstop, or Johannesburg nonstop from Atlanta? What is the crew cabin like aboard the airliners used? How do crews and passengers pace themselves? How are the planes modified to add ever more miles? Is dehydration in the airplane cabins and the risk of blood clots from deep vein thrombosis, etc., really issues? Captain Nick, you're the long haul pilot representative here on the crew. What would you say to some of these questions?
Okay, well, if you're doing a really long flight, you're usually carrying extra flight crew. You're not usually carrying extra cabin crew because they usually have a longer duty period. So you do swap over the pilots and extend the operating pilot's duty period by giving the guys who are going to do the takeoff and landing some rest in the middle of the flight, and other pilots take over and run the cruise. The cabin crew often need that themselves, but usually they do that by just reducing the number of cabin crew that are available in the cabin during a quiet time between services. So there's usually a legal minimum you can go down to, and everyone else can then go and have some rest. So that's the way we extend the cabin crew. The crew rest really depends entirely on the aircraft type. Some are pretty nice and sophisticated. Some are pretty basic. I remember on the 747, they used to have some bunks that were stuck up inside the fin. Other aircraft had them in the sort of space between the ceiling and the skin. The 340, we used to have what was like a kind of caravan stuck in the cargo hold that was accessed through a set of stairs from the main cabin. And that was just like a sort of carpet-lined cargo container, really, just full of bunks. It's usually pretty cramped, but I think once you're in and settled down, it's usually a reasonably comfortable bunk with the duvet and pillows and things, so you can usually get some sleep. Unfortunately, if there's lots of people in there, there's bound to be some snoring and other activities that occur when people what the people get up to in bed. I don't know. Perhaps we're best stay away from that. So that's how you do it. You let the people who are working take some rest, have some sleep, and then depending on how much you can give them, you extend your duty period until you can complete the flight. To modify the aircraft to add more miles, well, obviously you need decent crew rest, but the aircraft that are designed for really long range, usually you've obviously got to replace the weight. Well, you've got to somehow find room for more fuel, which is more weight. So the way to do that is to limit the amount of passengers and cargo you bring on, and possibly even shorten the airplane. Some aircraft that are designed for really long range are relatively short. They don't have an extended, nice long fuselage like, say, the 340-600. They sometimes fit extra tanks in, so there are often options to fit belly tanks still inside the aircraft. There's not many aircraft that use external tanks, although it has been known. And you just fill everything up to the gunnels and then, cruise as best you can to get from A to B. So that's kind of how you get the extra range. Is dehydration a problem? Yeah, it is. It's a problem wherever you are, because it doesn't really matter how some companies will say, well, we moisturize the air coming in to keep its moisture content up. The air you're taking out of the atmosphere is incredibly dry because there's no moisture in the air, or very little moisture in the air up at altitude. All the moisture is in the lower levels. So you will dehydrate because the air is dry. They do add water to the air in some aircraft, but they're finding that is a problem as well, because the last thing you want is condensation forming on the inside of the skin of an airplane, because then as that melts and drips onto the insulation, you can get mold forming, and that can be quite dangerous because mold spores can be really nasty to some people, and you don't want people reacting from that kind of thing. So in some respects, it's good for the aircraft to keep the interior dry rather than artificially moist. The best advice about keeping hydrated is not to drink too much alcohol, that is, because we know drinking too much alcohol will dehydrate you. Try not to sleep for too long periods. Take water at regular intervals, which means waking up every now and again and taking a drink of water, and keep yourself hydrated that way. And by doing that and by moving around the cabin and go and get yourself a drink, you will also reduce the risk of deep vein thrombosis, which usually comes from applying pressure to your limbs and then not moving them for quite a while. And the veins, which try and return that blood from your feet or your hands, so usually your legs, when the seat can actually press on those and stop the blood moving well, and you can get clots forming there. The way to get rid of that is to either exercise in your seat regularly, or get up and move around if that's feasible. And are they really an issue? Well, they are for some people. And those that are at a risk for deep vein thrombosis, it's probably recommended to wear flight socks, like the same socks you might get if you've had an operation. Another time when you are at risk of clots forming and moving around your body to block essential bits of plumbing. So you can get these and get socks that compress and are properly fitted, and those will help. But the previous advice I said about hydrating, moving around, is probably the best thing. And also, if you do get the symptoms of a clot in your legs, go to hospital straight away and make sure that you're checked out. So yeah, just look after yourself.
All very good advice. Go ahead, Dana.
The only thing I was going to say, I agree with Captain Nick 100% on, except for one thing, and that is, and I just want to clarify it, is that when you're at altitude, I agree that the air is much drier, but it's not completely dry. I think, especially on our aircraft, I'm only speaking for our aircraft, the Mad Dog. We have an air cycle machine that spins the air essentially, and what that does is that's what we call an air conditioning pack. And when it spins the air, it's actually spinning the moisture out of the air. So that's why we're getting much drier, 0% humidity.
I think it's actually about 6% on average, the humidity levels in most airplanes. Using those kind of ACM.
Yeah, but the air you're sucking in, I mean, if you're cruising at 40,000 feet, there's no moisture up there.
Right.
So the air you're sucking in is very dry to start off with. It's drier than the Sahara Desert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and I'm just thinking on the shorter flights, like what Jeff and I do. We are in a very moist environment, especially in the southeast during the summertime. We have a lot of humidity.
You say you guys are moist.
Yeah.
I hope we answered Miles' questions regarding ultra long flights and moisture, and that just kind of brings me reminds me of an article here a little bit further down in the feedback number 18. Since we're talking about things being moist, this is actually some video. I don't know how we got this, but I think it was a picture or video of Dr. Steph on one of her recent flights. No, wait a minute. That's not right. Hang on. Let's see. This is from Liz. I don't know why Liz you saw this, but a shameless woman filmed drying her knickers using the airplane's air vents. We're not kidding here. It takes all sorts for the world to go around. The passenger is just one of the 7 billion people trying to get by as a member of the human race. She has been shamed for airing her laundry in public, literally, and we don't mean this as a metaphor. She was filmed using the air vent of a plane to dry her knickers. And for those of you who are not from the UK, her underwear, her panties. The unnamed woman was flying on a Ural Airlines from Antalya, a resort city in southern Turkey, to Moscow when she was filmed drying her smalls. I've never heard of referred to that way, but I guess that's like
that's another English term.
Eensy teensy knickers, whatever.
No, it just refers to the small garments you put on.
Oh, okay. So her witnesses said she didn't seem embarrassed in the slightest as she spent 20 minutes holding her underwear up to the vent. The passenger on the flight from Turkey to Moscow spent 20 minutes. Oh, this is a caption for the picture that we don't have in there. One person who saw what happened said everyone was looking with interest and confusion, but everybody remained silent, probably because they were all in shock that they can't believe that somebody was actually doing this. However, the video... Go ahead.
Keep going, Jeff.
Okay.
I was just going to say, it looks like someone said it looks like they're not the underwear of an adult. It looks like they belong to a kid.
Because I don't know. I think that
could it be a mum who's needs to try and dry her kids? I must admit, if they're wet because of the reason we're all thinking, that would not be very pleasant.
No,
and quite honestly, they're it's probably dry enough just in the air. So just stick them out of sight. They'll probably dry anyway.
It's very interesting, to say the least. So if you want to see the picture and or video of this lady airing her dirty laundry, please check out this piece of feedback in the show notes if you dare. But thank you, Liz, for that. All right.
How about what Heish Bola said?
What did she say?
This woman has the intellect of a dog. My dog's actually very clean. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure this has anything to do with intellect, but well, you never know. All right. Getting back on track. That was number 18. We're going to switch back to number 4. Swedish Andreas sent us this piece of feedback. He says, "Hi there, Captain Jeff and crew. Swedish Andreas here with a short video and a comment on a long episode. First off, these Russian pilots, or well, in this case, in the year 1986, these Soviet pilots either are on the superhuman stick and rudder scale of flying, and or they have no sense of self-preservation. You choose. And yes, this is no emergency landing. They are only delivering the plane to an exhibition. Its final resting place, actually. The video is very... Did you guys get a chance to look at this video? It was a...
this guy doing the low flyby?
Illusion 62. It's the Illusion that kind of... It's a T-tail, swept wing, main landing gear, trucks, and has like 4 engines mounted on the tail, 2 on each side. And anyway,
it's the VC Tensky.
Yeah, a VC Tensky, exactly. And this thing was, I guess, being delivered to a site on the top of a hill, on a 900-meter short grass airfield. So 900 meters, that's what, just shy of 3,000 feet. In a famous but potentially dangerous maneuver, fire trucks and ambulance crews were positioned on hand for the landing, but were not needed. The jet is used to commemorate the site of the fatal crash of Otto Lilienthal in 1896 at the Golenberg Hill. And this jet was nicknamed Lady Agnes after Lilienthal's wife. It's now a museum with the fuselage divided between the Lilienthal collection and a popular wedding registry. So this was actually the pilots flying this airplane down, landing in a grass field for the airplane to be there for forever as an exhibit. But it's pretty amazing to see this thing come down. It bounces up and it comes back down. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this must be a crash landing. But no, they intended to do it, actually.
And then it dissolves into a huge cloud of smoke at the end.
Because the reversers are on and just kicking up dust everywhere. And you just the whole thing just disappears. It's pretty amazing.
And
pretty cool.
They rear the nose up. I guess that's probably perhaps a little bit of aerodynamic braking, or just perhaps they just lost it for a moment.
At first I wasn't sure, but then I thought maybe I was thinking the same thing as you. Maybe they were just trying to do some aero braking or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because it comes away. They nearly bang the tail in. I'm going, whoa.
Yeah, I guess, part of the, if I'm the pilot landing this thing thinking that, well, if I really bung this thing up, well, it's okay because it's the last flight on this airplane anyway. So we're going to do our best to get it down in one piece. And maybe if we don't too badly, muck it up, they'll be able to fix it. I don't know.
Yeah, incredible.
It is
brave bit of flying.
Yeah, I agree. All right. And moving on, Wyatt has some questions. He says, "Hi, Jeff and crew. I've been listening to your program for about 6 weeks, so please forgive me if this has already been discussed in earlier episodes." Now, I'm sorry, Wyatt. You're going to have to go back and listen to starting from episode 1, and it'll only take maybe, a couple of years to catch up with where we are now?
Because some people have done it in 3 months.
Which is crazy. Anyway, you know what? Just for you, Wyatt, since you're new, we're going to go ahead and entertain your question. Actually, I don't know if it has been asked or not. I'm just giving you a bad time. He says that he is a National Guard Black Hawk pilot, and he's one of those many people joining the RTPs, which stands for Rotor Transition Program. And by the way, we have several people that listen to the show, and I've met a few of you out there who have gone through this program, the Rotor Transition Program. In case listeners aren't familiar, the RTP program was created to help fill the ranks at the regional carriers. They combined the GI Bill funding with bonuses to help get Army helicopter pilots enough time to get their ATP minimums. It's creating a vacuum in the helicopter industry as the exodus continues. I was curious about your thoughts on these programs. How do other pilots feel about guys coming to the airlines with only 250 hours of fixed wing time? What skills of helicopter pilots do you think will transfer well, which will create problems? How do you feel about grimy helicopter pilots polluting the cockpit? Well, that's the number one issue, actually. Wouldn't you think, guys? The grimy helicopter pilots polluting our cockpit?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and their nasty eating habits and personal
Swearing,
hygiene. Yes.
belching, farting, just really
Gum chewing.
All of that. Yeah.
No, you know what? I've flown with a couple of guys that have gone through the program, Wyatt, and I have not noticed any difference between them and anybody else I've flown with. So,
well, that's part of the program, isn't it, to teach them manners?
Yeah, that's true.
I'm willing to bet their sick and rudder skills are excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when they try and auto-rotate, that becomes a bit of a problem.
Yeah, can't do that. Anyway, no, I don't think we have a problem with that at all. Maybe there are some out there that do, but I think that Dana and Nick and I are pretty open-minded, and I think that basic flying skills probably translate well, depending on, regardless of whether you're flying a helicopter or an airplane. Or
Gary's a former Hilo guy. He's
then
fine.
that changes my opinion then.
I'm sure it does.
Oh, that's a bad program. We should not be hiring these guys. I know he's not listening. Gary is a great guy, great pilot. And, if he hadn't told me he was a, helicopter guy, transition guy, I would never know. So
yeah, we've got a bunch of guys from ex-Navy, ex-Army, and they're actually, they're probably amongst the top notch, I would say, of aircraft handlers. They're usually very good. Once they get rid of this strange habit of trying to slow the airplane down to 0 knots and land vertically on the runway, then they're fine.
Yeah, the auto rotation thing does not work well in an airliner at all. Anyway, either way, I appreciate your program greatly. I'm prepping for my interviews. And as a guy who spent 6 years ignoring airplane regulations, this program is a great study technique to get a feel for airline regs and fixed wing culture. Your attitudes and opinions are always professional. Not always, but mostly.
Which show did he listen to?
I know. Maybe he thinks he's listening to a different podcast. Anyway, and set a proper standard for new pilots joining the industry. Well, thank you very much for the kind words, Wyatt. He says, adios from Fort Worth, Texas, and I guess he is originally from Lambertville, New Jersey. All right, so
good luck with the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that guy that I met up with in Nashville a couple weeks ago, who was returning from his initial training at a regional carrier in Dayton, and was traveling back to Birmingham. He is also another one of those who have made it through the RTP program. And let's see. I could go on and on about that. So, no problem at all. Hey, we have some audio feedback to listen to. You want to do that?
You bet.
All right, here we go.
Hello, APG crew. This is Thomas in Asheville, North Carolina. Just listening to episode 309, and in particular, Captain Nick's plane tale, Fighting High Demons. What an amazing story that is. And thanks a lot for that, Nick. And of course, part of the story was taking an aircraft to its altitude limits, really, and beyond. I'm curious. I'm guessing none of you have done that sort of pushing the limits in terms of altitude, but what is the highest altitude you've achieved in flight? I guess the highest altitude above sea level. And I'm guessing that Captain Nick and Jeff, having been in the military, have had some pretty high altitude exercises at times. And Steph, I imagine you've also taken those general aviation aircraft to a decent altitude. And Dana, you've flown a lot of different aircraft. So have you ever noted it? Is it anything of note? I'd be curious what you could share. And on the topic of Asheville, I hope you guys come up here sometime and do a meetup. I'd love to treat you to some of our fine microbrews, and maybe that'll entice you. You know, I think Asheville has more breweries per capita than any other place in the United States. So, just putting that word out there to entice you, even maybe get Nick across the pond to visit Asheville again. Thanks for everything you do, and blue skies.
Well, thank you for taking the time, Thomas, to record some audio feedback, and beer in Asheville sounds absolutely wonderful. Got to do that for sure. And I would wager to bet of the three of us that are on the show today that, well, even if Steph were here, I don't think it would matter. I believe that Captain Nick would probably hold the honor for having flown the highest.
Well, I don't know, Jeff, actually, because I haven't been that high. I think probably the highest I did was a trip in the Phantom. Got up to about 56,500. That's all. Nothing
beat by a
special.
long way. The highest I've been. Yeah, my highest I've been, I think, is maybe like mid 40s and the T-38, or maybe not even that, maybe 43. I forgot what the service ceiling was on that. But yeah, no higher than, and the highest I ever was in the 141 was about 43,000. Yeah, so.
Yeah, but I don't think out of military flying, I don't think that's a particularly stunning altitude. I mean, the aircraft was probably capable of going a lot higher. It's just that we very rarely had a good excuse to go up there, and you needed a full tank of gas and clean wings and a good reason to want to waste it all. So, and we didn't usually have that many opportunities.
Yeah. What'd you say, Dana? How high have you been?
In the mid 40s as well. Unofficially or officially? Unofficially, I was on a last minute charter that one of the guys had called in sick, and it was a Citation 10, went from Fulton County Airport out to Eugene, Oregon. So we had that up at 45. But wow. I technically, I'm not type rating the aircraft, so I technically wasn't piloting the airplane. So highest I've ever been is 41 when I was in this Citation 2. That's it.
Yep. So I was right. Nick definitely has us all beat 56,000 or whatever. That's up there. So I noticed that when you're up even in the low 40s, you really get a sense of the curvature of the. I know this is going to come as a surprise to those of you who believe that Earth is flat, but
Yes.
You actually do kind of start to see some curvature on the horizon, and I would imagine up at 50-something thousand feet, that's even more pronounced.
Yeah, and the sky takes a distinctly dark shade to it. So it goes quite black above you, dark blue, black. Neat. But I've cruised an F-18 at 51. We weren't going for altitude. We were just coming home for an exercise in Malaysia, and there were a lot of big thunderstorms around. So rather than dodge our way through them, we just kept cruising up. But at 51, you just have to keep tapping the burners because you didn't want to use constant burner. So you tap the burners, get the speed up a bit, and because you're struggling between going transonic and your stall speed. So you're just trying to juggle the throttle. So we just cruised home for fun at that height. But no. And no, I didn't ever fly on Concorde. Thank you, Tony. I wouldn't have minded. It would have been fun. They were up around 50 or 60, weren't they?
Yeah, I think First Officer Mike said he and his granddad got to 60,000 on the Concorde, and TWA 88T in the chat room 51,000 feet in a Lear 45.
That's brave stuff. Those little airplanes, they do have a tendency every now and again to decompress, and you have to be damn quick with an oxygen mask to stop from dying when that happens.
Yeah, look at Payne Stewart. That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Oh, there've been a number of them, haven't there? Yeah.
True. All right. Let's move on. Some more audio feedback. This from our friend in Wellington, New Zealand, Glenn.
To Steph, Captain Nick, and
let me start that from the beginning. It'd probably be more better. Mo better. Here we go.
Hi, Captain Jeff, Dr. Steph, Captain Nick, and soon-to-be Captain Dana. Hello, and my fellow APG syndrome sufferers. It's Glenn Towler here from New Zealand with some feedback. I'm not anti-Russian. I just seem to find that they do seem to produce a lot of good material that we can use to say how crazy they are. And of course, in the news again this week, of course, there was an Antonov crash where the pilot decided not to do without anti-icing, apparently, allegedly. And the plane crashed because of ice all over the sensors, apparently. So, yeah, they never seem to change the Russian. So also, of course, Oshkosh is coming up. I'm flying over to Atlanta on the 14th of July. So, if I'd like to have a meet up before I jet off to Oshkosh itself, that'd be awesome. So, you say the 15th or 16th of July would be awesome. So maybe we can make something happen, hopefully. I know a few people in Atlanta now. And that'd be awesome. And also on the 26th of July, about 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd like to run at the Brown Arch again, like we did last year. That's pretty awesome. I know quite a few people turned up. And so, like an APG airline, airplane geeks sort of meetup. I'll publicize it around on Facebook and Twitter and maybe try and get in the Slack room. I haven't been in the Slack room for a long time, so I must do that more. That's it, really. Keep up the good work, of course, and enjoying the podcast. And blue skies and tailwinds. Oh, and talons, Douglas. Glenn out.
Thank you for the talons, Douglas.
Yep.
Thank you, Glenn, for that. Yeah, Glenn's the one that usually sends us links about the crazy things that the Russians do. So I was accusing him of being anti-Russian. All right, let's see. I think it might be just about time for this week's installment of Plain Tales. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Brilliant.
All right.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, The Vengeance of Peenemund. The movie is the Glenn Miller story, and it's one of my favorites. At the moment, it depicts his pure Hollywood, as the motor of a V-1 flying bomb cuts out during a war concert in London. In the eerie silence as the bomb falls, the audience takes cover, but the band plays on, only to have the bomb explode at the perfect moment to punctuate the score. However, in the real world, the terror that these weapons wreaked upon the brave people of London during the final months of the Second World War was only too real. The V1 has history with my family, since the large oak door to my family home was made from the remnants of a Kentish barn from my grandfather's farm that was blown up by a flying bomb during the war. It was as early as 1940 that the Nazi forces projected the need for a new generation of weapon to use against their enemies. They were to be called the Wunderwaffen, the super weapons or wonder weapons of Nazi Germany. The proposal came about as a counter to the relative failure of the Baedeker raids, the Blitz that was conducted against the major cities of England. The effectiveness of British defences, particularly the RAF's night fighter capability, were causing unacceptable losses for little material gain, so new weapons were needed, and Peenemund, on the edge of the Baltic Sea, was chosen as the location for a secret base, the Peenemund Army Research Centre. In 1936, the Aviation Ministry paid 750,000 Reichsmarks to the town of Wolgast for the whole northern peninsula of the Baltic island of Houston. An airfield and research centre were built, and over time, some of the most brilliant minds in Germany were sent there to work for the Nazi war machine. The technological leaps that the scientists of Peenemund made would stun the world, and by the end of the war they were well on their way to developing an intercontinental ballistic missile for use against the United States of America. The Geltenschaft 1, in English Vengeance 1, or more simply the V1, was one of the first weapons to come from Peenemund. It was an early form of cruise missile and designed for the terror bombing of London. The Argus Motoren Company had experience in developing remote-controlled surveillance aircraft, and by the beginning of the war they had a proposal for a remote aircraft that could carry a 1,000 kilogram, that's 2,200 pound payload, a distance of 500 kilometers, 310 miles. A meeting with Ernst Udet, the Luftwaffe Director General of Equipment, was not successful since the remote control system was seen as a major design flaw, but the company continued to develop the project as a manned aircraft. The technical director of Heinkel assisted in the design and the prototype production, and from their endeavors came the Faisler Fi-103. The aircraft had a simple design, a welded sheet steel ogival-shaped fuselage with short straight wings made from plywood. It was just over 8 meters, 27 feet long, and weighed a little over 2 metric tons. That's around 4,700 pounds. The wingspan was around 5.5 meters, 17 feet. However, it could carry a warhead of 850 kilograms, which is nearly 2,000 pounds. Its range, though, was quite limited, just 250 kilometers, 160 miles. However, it could cruise at 400 miles an hour, flying between 2,000 and 3,000 feet. What made the machine all the more remarkable was the power plant, a pulse jet. Mounted in a pod on top of the tail, the engine, which used a resonant combustion, was first conceived in 1864 with both a Russian and a Swede claiming to have invented the concept. What made this type of engine attractive for the creators of the V1 was its simplicity, low cost, excellent thrust-to-weight ratio, and the fact that it could be run on almost anything that will burn, such as sawdust or coal powder. In practice, the V1 used low-grade petrol. The principle of the pulse jet is so simple, it's one of the few that can be easily described without the aid of a picture. Air is drawn into the intake and through simple one-way valves. It's then mixed with an aerosol of petrol that is ignited by a simple automotive spark plug. The burning fuel expands, and because the increasing pressure closes the one-way valves, the only way out is through the exhaust, thereby providing thrust. The V1's Argus engine attained a stable resonance frequency of 43 cycles per second, which gave it the distinctive and very loud buzzing sound. It was this noise that led to the V1 to be called the buzz bomb or doodlebug, after the noisy flying characteristics of beetles such as the European cockchafer. Other than the flapping shutter valves in the intake, the engine had no moving parts and could be run while stationary. It was started by using compressed air to induce airflow and acetylene as fuel. Once it reached its operating temperature, the engine became self-sustaining and the external hose connectors could be removed. Two versions of the Fi-103 were developed, one guided by a pilot, the R version, and one that was to become the V1, which was fitted with a rudimentary autopilot. The R version, codenamed Rickenberg, had several operational versions, all of which were basically suicide bombs. During the development of the piloted versions, test pilots were dying just trying to land the aircraft, and Hannah Reach was asked to make some flights to establish the course. I talked about this Nazi test pilot in an earlier plain tale from APG 217, The Woman Who Flew the V1. She discovered that the Reichenberg had a remarkably high stall speed, and the previous pilots, without high-speed flight experience, had tried to approach and land too slowly. The Reichenbergs were launched from the air, either by towing them up or mounting them piggyback fashion on a mother aircraft, such as the jet-powered Arado AR-234 jet bomber. But with the success of the V-1, the manned versions never went into full production. The V-1, however, was launched from a steam-powered ramp known as a Dampfversucher. Later versions used a rocket system powered by hydrogen peroxide and potassium permanganate. The V-1's guidance system was a crude autopilot, which regulated the aircraft's altitude and speed. It was first designed to be used as a precision radio-controlled weapon, launched and guided by a bomber, but the Nazi government decided instead to use it as an area weapon against London. A weighted pendulum system provided fore and aft attitude control, with fluctuations damped by a stabilizing gyro compass tied to a magnetic compass. The power for the gyroscope and the flight controls came from a pair of large compressed air tanks charged to 150 atmospheres. The missile made do with just elevators and a rudder for control. On the nose of the V-1 was a small propeller, which turned a counter that had been preset before launch, taking into account the distance and the wind conditions between the launch position and the target, London. Every 30 revolutions of the propeller counted down one digit until it reached 0. This armed the warhead and detonated 2 explosive bolts. The first sprung spoilers on the wings and the elevator into the airflow, whilst the second jammed the elevator link and cut power to the rudder, fixing it neutral. The result was to put the V-1 into a steep dive. Initially, it had an accuracy that put it within a 19-mile diameter circle, but with improvements, this was reduced to just 7 miles. Many thought that it was the motor cutting out that caused the V-1 to come down, but the bomb was designed to enter a power dive with the pulse jet still running. The motor cutout, caused by fuel starvation in the dive, gave warning of the impending explosion and allowed people time to take cover. In the mind of its Nazi creators, this was far from ideal and was soon fixed so that by the end of the V-1's reign of terror, they were arriving almost unannounced. On a Friday in July 1944, a V-1 bomb exploded in front of the clock tower in Lewisham High Street, in the middle of a bustling market. The market stalls lined up outside Marks and Spencer's, Woolworths and Sainsbury's caught the full force of the blast, which came without warning. The bomb had detonated on the roof of a bomb shelter, which collapsed. Shops were demolished on both sides of the street, and casualties were found in the basement cafe of Woolworths and even on passing buses. The effect of the bomb was strong, damaging property for 600 yards. Dead and injured lay everywhere. The most seriously injured were taken to the nearby Lewisham Hospital, which itself had been hit a few days before, with 70 injured and 3 killed. A month before this, a V-1 bomb hit the Guards' Chapel on Birdcage Walk, not far from Buckingham Palace. It was a Sunday, and a military and civilian congregation had gathered at the Guards' Chapel for morning worship. The choir had just started to sing the Eucharist when the engine of a V-1 cut out overhead, and it nosedived onto the chapel roof. Tons of rubble fell onto the congregation, and as the clouds of dust subsided, first aid teams and heavy rescue crews arrived to find a scene of utter devastation. At first, the debris appeared impenetrable. The smashed remains of walls and the collapsed roof had trapped dozens. The doors to the chapel were blocked. The only access point for the rescue teams lay behind the altar. Doctors and nurses had to scramble in between the concrete walls to administer morphine and first aid. Several rescuers later recalled that the silver altar cross had been untouched by the blast, and candles on the altar continued to burn. 121 soldiers and civilians were killed, and 141 others were seriously injured. The death toll included the officiating chaplain, several senior British Army officers, and a US Army colonel. Countermeasures were taken to defeat the threat in layers of defense. One was a line of advanced radar-laid anti-aircraft guns, but the V-1 was a small target. However, by the end, the gun belt was accounting for over 50% of the attacks. Barrage balloons were flown, but the Germans fitted cable cutters to the V-1's wings, and fewer than 300 were ultimately brought down. Only the fastest fighters stood a chance of catching the jet-powered flying bombs, and attacking them was a risky business, since the fighter stood a good chance of being brought down by the explosion should they succeed in hitting one. Wing Commander Roly Beaumont described an attack. He fired a long burst and was left inside a huge fireball of black smoke, flames, and twisted steel. His Tempest was rocking and bucking in the heart of the blast, and he was thrown violently into the side of the cockpit. When he finally shot through into the light, he saw that his uniform was smoking, as flames had licked through into the cockpit and singed his clothes, but luckily he was unhurt. The best fighters to use were the Tempest, modified Thunderbolts, P-51 Mustangs, Griffin-powered Spitfires, and the wonderful wooden Mosquito. In addition, radar-equipped Wellington bombers were used as airborne early warning aircraft. Aware of the dangers of trying to shoot the V-1s down, some pilots chose to use the turbulence from their wingtips to topple the autopilot within the flying bomb, whereupon it would spiral into the ground. Even German intelligence was fed misleading target information through double agents in the hope that they would adjust their aiming data and cause the bombs to fall short of the city. As a result, a great number of V-1s failed to reach London. Had the correct range data been applied, the casualties might have risen by 50% or more. Because of its limited range, the V-1 had to be launched from near the North French coast, and the beginning of the end for the weapon came after Allied troops invaded mainland Europe and overran the launch sites. As the Germans retreated, they chose other targets, such as Antwerp in Belgium. In addition, Allied bombers attacked launch ramps as soon as they were discovered, and the last V-1 to fall on England was on the 29th of March 1945. Over 9,000 of these indiscriminate terror weapons were fired at London over a 10-month period, and 2,419 reached their target, causing almost 23,000 casualties, with over 1 million buildings damaged or destroyed. At their peak, there were more than 100 launches per day. Although many were destroyed or failed en route, the weapon did enormous damage to the city. However, impressed with the concept, the United States reverse-engineered the V-1, and Republic Ford built a version known as the JB-2 Loon. They planned to employ the Loon against Japan during the expected invasion, Operation Downfall, but the Japanese surrender obviated the need for its use. When I saw one in bright yellow and sporting USAF markings at the Udvar-Hazy Air and Space Museum at Dallas, I have to say it sent shivers down my back.
Well, something that sends shivers, well, goosebumps more like it. Listening to every week's installment of Plane Tales. Another fantastic job, Captain Nick.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I must admit that idea came from when I saw that doodlebug. I was intrigued. I'd obviously seen them before, ones that have been put in museums since the war, but always Luftwaffe, or in fact they were, I'm not quite sure, I think they were artillery pieces they were considered, so they were probably fired by the army. But by the by, when I saw one in USAF markings, I went, what the hell is this? And that kind of led me to go and look it up and try and work out what was happening. Yeah, It was an amazing story. And that bit about the door from my old house, it's very beautifully made door. My grandfather, apart from being a farmer, hop farmer, he was a good carpenter, and he made this door, and it went together with in a very traditional method with just pegs and no nails. Probably still there now. Unfortunately, the house has been sold, but I wonder if the owners know the story.
Hop farmer. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. It would have been great to have been able to have some beer made from his hops, but
yeah, wouldn't it?
Vintage hops.
I didn't realize that they had reverse engineered that rocket.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
you guys were going to use it against the Japanese.
Didn't realize it. And the funny part is, I thought that was the original version at the museum. So,
all right,
interesting, very interesting story.
Hadn't realized that myself. You always learn something new on the show, that's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Or many of us do, anyway. All right, moving on to the feedback folder number 8. Liz sent this in. The Transport Minister, Canadian Transport Minister, orders officials to explore all options for reducing pilot laser incidents. Transport Minister Marc Garneau has instructed his officials. Okay, that's just a repeat of the headline there. Let me move on here to the next paragraph. A federal official says that those options include banning certain types of lasers outright. The number of laser incidents have actually dropped by 25% since Garneau initiated a public education campaign 2 years ago. There were 379 reported incidents of lasers aimed at planes last year, down from 590 in 2015 and 527 in 2016. But Garneau says that that's not good enough. Here's a quote from him. "This is not only reckless, it's criminal, and it is absolutely essential that we bring those numbers down because one is too many. There's no question about it." And then it goes on to talk about the risks of lasers pointed to the cockpit of an aircraft, usually during takeoff or landing, the two most critical phases of flight, and the fact that that can distract, disorient, or even temporarily blind a pilot. So,
yeah, well, I'm on his side there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
I have not. I know that you have, Nick, experienced this phenomenon.
Yeah, a couple of attacks, not as many as Al. I think they've got a different class of laser user up where he used to fly from around Manchester.
More of a sport where Al was flying, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah. Certainly they're a nightmare.
How about you, Dana? Have you ever been lasered?
One time, and it was green.
Yeah, that's the worst kind, they say.
Yeah, we had it a quick flash. It really wasn't really able to focus into the flight deck very long, but it was a very, very quick flash, and it was definitely green. Could see the green in it, so didn't affect either one of us. Obviously, did the appropriate paperwork.
I don't do a lot of, the only flying that I do at all during night is the early morning hours, and I guess most of the people with lasers are fast asleep. But I don't fly that much late at night, so perhaps that's why I've never had the experience. I hope never to have the experience, but I'm glad to see that some country is doing something about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Larry wrote to us, and we were talking about last episode the guy that broke through the fence at LAX, ran to a Southwest 737, grabbed a fire extinguisher in the wheel well, and the alarm went off and all that kind of stuff. And we were kind of scratching our heads about that. And he sent us a picture of something, the APU fire control system and panel on the inside of a 737 wheel well. And as we had guessed, that maybe that was what this person was actually grabbing, not an actual fire extinguisher, but some kind of a fire extinguishing handle, and in this case the APU fire control handle. And he said, I'll bet that this does or makes some kind of an indication in the cockpit if somebody yanks on this thing. I'm not sure if it does or not.
That really looks like something that came out of a steam engine.
Well, okay. It's a Boeing. Right?
Well, I rest my case.
Okay. I mean, I just trying to help you out there, Nick.
You're very kind. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, here we go.
So then looks like, Nick, you responded to Larry Geezer and sent some images of your own, but this doesn't look like a 737 to me.
No, that was just the equivalent of an Airbus, and it's a little neat guarded red guarded button. So
Okay.
it's nice to see the two beside each other. Actually,
well, Boeing's been making airplanes for a very, very long time. So
out of cast iron by the looks of it.
they are rugged. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
Good
Larry.
thing we didn't send the picture of the Mad Dog.
Yeah,
control panel. Then really,
oh, I'd love to see that one.
It really looks steampunk.
You want to see that? I'll make sure I send a picture of that.
Okay, do that. And, maybe when I think about it, I'll take a picture of the inside of the main wheel well, and you can see all the cables and the pulleys, and you just look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that this actually works."
Wait a minute. Are you suggesting that you're going to do a walk around?
I do walk arounds all the time, man. Usually when it's not my leg, when it's the other pilot's leg, I'll do a walk around.
Well, okay. So summertime's approaching, so you do walk arounds again.
No, I've been doing them in the wintertime too.
You know, Dana's soon going to be a captain. I'll laugh my socks off if he doesn't do every walk around.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah,
I will be doing my walk. I love doing my walk arounds.
You know, some airlines that's actually the policy that the captain must do the walk around.
You know, the guys that never get out, decide never to do a walk around. They don't know what the outside of the aircraft looks like, and certainly, lose familiarity with different parts of the aircraft. And so that's part of the oral exam at Acme is you have to know on the exterior of the aircraft what different things do and what you need to be looking for. So I would say that it would just be smart to keep current that way.
Yeah.
I don't get guys that never do that. I mean,
they during their oral examination, they'll go airplane,
wing,
airplane, wheel, airplane.
Exactly.
Well, what else are you looking for? Come on. I mean, counting the wings, counting the engines.
Yeah. Make sure all the big pieces are there. No huge leaks.
no. Make sure all the fluids on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. All right. Number 10, Ralph. He said, just 2 questions this time. Smiley face. Don't want to overwhelm you guys. Hey, no need to get snarky, Ralph. You'll remember Ralph Walker sent in some feedback a little while ago.
Yeah,
and he
has
had
a whole show to
like
answer
100 questions on it. Yeah. Well, okay, maybe not 100. It just seemed that way. And so I said something about the fact that, if you're new to this program and you're sending in feedback, please don't send more than like 1 or 2 questions in your feedback, because that just makes it more fair for everyone else to get to their feedback. So looks like Ralph took it to heart, even though he's a little snarky. But we like snarkiness, Ralph. Thank you. He said, number 1, do you carry your passport with you at all times just in case of a change of plans? Picking up a plane in Mexico, for instance?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we are required to. And even though that Dana and I are in domestic categories, technically, even though we'll fly to the Caribbean and Mexico and Canada. But even if we had planned to fly a trip only within the domestic United States, we are required as Acme pilots to always have in our presence, in possession, a passport. So we should always have our passport with us every time we leave for a trip. And what percentage of thrust do you use? 50%? 90%? Question also applies to the old curmudgeon, A330 versus A340. And let's see, what percentage of thrust do you use? I use about 53.8% usually.
To do what, taxi?
Just kidding. I'm just joking. We don't really, when we use reduced thrust power takeoffs, or that's a contradiction, isn't it? Thrust power. When we do reduced thrust or reduced exhaust pressure ratio, reduced EPR kind of takeoffs, it's not expressed in a percentage of thrust for us. It is measured in different units. Even if you're using, if your engine is one of those that doesn't have an exhaust pressure ratio gauge and are using compressor speed settings or RPM settings, again, it doesn't roughly equate to percentage of thrust coming out of the engine. So I'm not really sure what percentage of thrust that we, what that would equate to. Like if we used a standard, for instance, Dana and I, a lot of times we'll be able to use a what we call a flex 50 or an EPR 50 setting, and it's an assumed temperature. So it may be, let's say 65 degrees Fahrenheit outside, or let's make it 68, makes it easy, 20 degrees Celsius. But instead of using the power settings for 20 degrees Celsius, we'll use the power settings for 50 degrees Celsius, which I think most people would agree is much, much warmer. And what that does is it sets up the engine to a lower power setting. And so in effect, we're making a reduced thrust takeoff using reduced power, which ends up making the engine last longer. Longer between overhauls and wear and tear on the engine, that kind of thing. And also, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, that the chance or likelihood of an engine failure on takeoff goes down dramatically if you're not using the full rated thrust of the engine for your takeoff. But I don't know if that's true or not, but that sounds like it sounds like it'd be true.
Yeah, we only use full power, i.e. toga, for an occasional takeoff and obviously an occasional go around. And we're limited to 5 minutes in a non-emergency situation because the engine's up there at a very high temperature, producing a lot of thrust, and you don't want to cause so much wear that you end up with a failure. If you're in an emergency, you can increase that to 10 minutes. And I always think, well, that's a bit of a laugh, because if I'm in an emergency and I need it, I'll use it as long as I damn well
There's
want
no
to,
limitation.
till the damn thing blows up if I have to.
Yeah,
exactly right. So that's always a bit of a laugh. And we, out of interest, not only flex our takeoffs in the same way that Jeff described, we derate our climbs. So we use a lower or a derated climb thrust for exactly the same reason, as to prolong the engine life.
Anything to add, Dana?
No, perfect.
Pretty much covered it. Yeah, Dana and I fly the same jet, so we're probably going to say the same thing.
No sense droning on about the same thing.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so there you go. Again, you could probably use some kind of a formula to come up with a rough estimate of what percentage of the thrust you're actually using based on your exhaust pressure ratio setting or your N1 setting, but I just don't know what it is. I'd just be guessing. Maybe 75-80% of the actual thrust. What do you guys think?
Well, it would be a wild guess, but
yeah,
I would say about the right 80%. 80% probably.
Well, couldn't you say though on the N1 gauge, because there's a range. We talk about 88, 92, and 95.
Mm-hmm.
In 95 is representative of maximum power applied, not firewall power, but max power. So couldn't you say, in theory,
that you could roughly estimate it? Because the only reason why I hesitate is because I think what's the maximum N1s, they're over 100%. So it's not exactly a 100% range. I mean, like the highest.
I mean, if you firewall it, I think, what do you get, 105 or somewhere around there?
Something between 100 and 105. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
that's close. Yeah.
It's a close representation. So if you really wanted to put a percentage, flex thrust is roughly 88% on the Mad Dog.
Okay.
A normal power thrust is roughly 92% rough. I mean, we're talking N1, so N1
Mhm.
being the scale from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
In the sense, so in max power, which is just a normal, no derate of any sorts, I was right at 95%. So, or 95 N1. So you could probably put a percentage and be fairly close or
Yeah.
fairly accurate with that.
I'd say plus or minus 5 degrees, probably.
Yeah.
It'd be close. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Thanks, Dana. All right.
That's the
and thank
first
you.
good point I've had all day. Yay.
Oh man, you're making great points, man. Ralph, thank you very much for your questions. Oh, he ends with, I have terminal APG syndrome and I'm proud of it. Now, we haven't played that yet for this show. Perhaps we should. And that is if I can find it. Yes, I'm using a new program with the sound clips here. So, you know what? I'm going to go to the old one. I know where that is. Maybe. This is all going to be edited out in post.
Oh, yeah.
It will.
Yeah,
Really?
That'll be the day.
Well, just imagine you're listening to right now the APG syndrome. What if I hit this button here? Oh, that's applause. A for applause. I hear you coughing there, Mr. Cougher.
Yeah. And
It's very, very diminished. It's not full volume, that's for sure. Let's see.
Sadly, it was right into the mic. My apologies.
No problem.
I know, but this guy doing the flying has no airline experience at all. He's a menace to himself and everything else in the air. Yes, birds too.
Okay, here we go.
Give me the news. I got a bad case.
APG syndrome.
No pills gonna cure my ill. I got a bad case.
APG syndrome. All right. And let's continue on. Thank you, Ralph, for only sending in 2 questions this week. We do appreciate it. Liz. That Liz again sent in, actually, I think what I want to do here is play some feedback from Robert first, and then we'll get to Liz's feedback, which kind of piggybacks a little bit on it. So we have some audio feedback from Robert. Take it away, sir. Actually, he sent this in as video, which is really cool, and I invite you to look at his homemade video that he recorded in the show notes. The link that will be there, but I went ahead and made an audio version of it so we can all listen to it together.
Hey, good morning, APG crew here from Boulder, Colorado, the Courtyard Marriott here. I'm working out here this week, and for a Georgia boy, these are quite some unique views. We don't get snow and mountain views quite like this, but it is -1 Fahrenheit. So I am going back inside for the rest of this video. This is also take 2. The alarm clock interrupted the other one. I was listening to APG 311, and there was some discussion, as you guys always do pretty much on every podcast, about the differences between automation in the cockpit and just plain old flying. And this reminded me of when I fly my Microsoft Flight Simulator that I've done for probably 10, 15 years. And maybe it's a combination of laziness or just habit or whatever, but I always typically turn on the automated air traffic control that guides me to a IFR landing. You know, I plug in the radio signal for the landing runway that it gives me. Because I find on Flight Simulator that is much, much easier for me to actually land. I find that if I try to do a visual approach, it doesn't end up being as nice as, doing the glide slope and everything. So I was seeing if you guys had some tips for someone who rarely flies at all, just as a novice, hobbyist on something like Microsoft Flight Simulator. This also, Jeff, when you were flying through Atlanta recently, and the new term there, RVR, runway visual range, that was actually a new term to me. And so all these terms and things kind of had a reminder there that I thought I would ask the question when you guys had, when you're going through flight training 101, 102, and learning visual approaches, something that I could consider, for trying to learn maybe the other way and not landing, with IFR like that. So thanks for all the podcasts and everything. You guys are doing great. Hope to see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Great questions. I guess the main thing I got from that was, okay, he's flying a flight on his flight simulator software, and normally he just connects everything and it just does it automatically. And he was thinking about trying to fly more visual approaches. And do we have any tips or advice for him on how to do that? Now, I don't have experience at all with PC simulation software. So I'm guessing that it's possible to use that kind of software and actually quote unquote fly the airplane using keystrokes and various key combinations and that kind of thing. But then I know that there's also a way that you can connect peripherals to your computer, like a joystick and even rudder pedals or a control yoke and that kind of thing. I would imagine that would make it much more realistic to actually, quote, again, fly the simulator. And I know, Dana, didn't you say that you've done some so you have experience with PC flight simulation?
Yeah, I mean, that's going back a long time.
Yeah,
more than at least 8 to 10 years, at least, going back. Probably Flight Sim 10 is the last one I can remember, but it's very realistic. I actually, when I was going through training and learning how to fly instruments, I used the PC to help me learn, at least get my scan going. So
okay, well then, if that is true, and he's using it in that way, I mean, but isn't there a way you can do it without any of those peripherals, and you can actually just use keys and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I guess that really isn't very realistic as far as
it's not
flying.
very. It's not very realistic. It's a way that back when I was flying Flight Sim, it was used quite a bit. I would have quite literally a joystick, and then I would use like F for flaps, or a D for flaps extend, D for retract, or G for gear, and I don't remember all what the keystrokes were, but it was in a lot of respects that wasn't very realistic, and it was really the beginning stages of them having an entire control yoke system, or a system you could buy and actually fly and get the feel for it. So I was more of a joystick user, very much like an Airbus, as a matter of fact.
So let me say this then. Let's just assume that Robert has his setup so that he has some peripheral devices to better simulate actually flying a real airplane. What would you say to him? Okay, I'm sitting in front of my computer now, Dana. How do I? And I can see the airport ahead of me. It's visual conditions. How do I fly this?
It's hard to say that. It's more of a it's more of a function of the visuality of the computer, because there are different settings in which you can have your perspective to be. So what I would do is I would be in the visual world using a peripheral, using all of your tools as if you have it set up like a flight deck. Well, I'd fly just like I was in a flight deck. I would use either an ILS, or I'd use VASI, or I'd use some type of instrument approach, because there's no way until you get close on the simulator program to really get a field of depth of vision to be able to sense where you are in spatial orientation.
Okay.
So unless they've come very far in maybe even the 3D world, if they were able to come up, they have these goggles now that you can put on with your phone. It's almost like a 3D world. That would help to resolve the depth issue. But even us in the sim, we have that issue when we're trying to shoot visual approaches in the sim. You have it's basically just like a flight simulator that anybody has at home, and your depth of field of vision is very difficult, even in a level C or level D simulator. So that we even fly.
So basically, I think maybe sometimes that people listen to the show who are not pilots like we are, have this idea that when we say we're going to fly a visual approach, that we're not going to use anything but our eyeballs and looking at the runway and flying the airplane that way. But guess what? We always use backup instrumentation as if we were in the clouds and couldn't see a thing. We'd still dial up the ILS system to provide a backup to show the track to the runway, to show our glide path. So if we have a glide slope available, we're going to use that. And so we're not normally, in fact, it's very unusual that we'll ever fly to an airport that doesn't have any kind of a ground-based or satellite-based approach aid for us to look at in the cockpit, just to kind of double check and make sure that what we are flying and what we're seeing visually matches up with the instrument approach, the underlying instrument approach. And I would imagine that, Nick, you would agree with that as well, right?
Yeah, I've got a bit of experience on flight sims, and I think if you want to do it completely visually, it is quite feasible. But the best thing to do is to work up to it by looking for the visual cues that you will need whilst you're flying instrument approaches. So get the weather good, and then look at the aspect of the runway, look at the way the visual slope indicators, the PAPIs or the VASs or whatever you've got on the airfield you're flying on your sim work. If you go low, look at the readings, you're going to get more reds. If you go high, you're going to get more whites, and to get a feel for it as if you were doing it visually. And then get yourself lined up on the glide slope and get yourself halfway down on an approach, then just turn the ILS off and try manually continuing and holding that picture and doing a visual landing. Then back it out a bit, do it a bit more, back it out a bit, do it more. And then eventually, when you get confident enough, try coming in at an angle for the runway, picking up the cues and turning on, and then descending yourself down. And then eventually, if you're when you're happy enough, try doing it from a circuit. Plenty of documentation on how to fly circuits. So you should be able to find something that applies to the aircraft you're simulating, and just slowly build up a knowledge base until you feel you can do it yourself.
Exactly. So, great advice from both Dana and Nick, who are experienced PC simulators, or at least at some point in their flight experience have that experience of flying PC sims. Again, I can't say anything about it because I've never had that experience myself, but I think that's great. I mean, I'm thinking just do it the way we do it in the real world too. It's the same thing. Just use those things as backups, and then you can you kind of get that picture, and
just to reinforce the fact that you've got the right visual cues to land the airplane.
In reality, anybody that wants to learn or is even considering learning to fly, other than just in the sim world, you don't want to develop bad habits. So even when you're sitting there on a flight simulator, if you're cutting corners or not flying the aircraft the way you really should, it's kind of negative training in my thought process, because you got to learn the proper way to do it or fly the aircraft in order to be safe when you're out there flying in the real world. So, in the PC world, you can hit Control-Alt-Delete or reset, and you're back at the end of the runway. In the real world, if you're using the application to learn how to, fly in the real world, or eventually fly in the real world, then I would highly recommend that you take some advice and use the simulator in a positive way, and make sure that you fly the aircraft, just as Nick and I have discussed.
And of course, we've talked about it several times in this show where airplanes have landed at the wrong runway. And every single time that we've talked about it, if the crews had been using the underlying instrument approach and referring to it as they were flying their visual approach to the runway, they would have noticed that they weren't jiving, and they would have possibly noticed that the airport and runway that they were going to and they actually landed upon were not the ones that they thought they were landing on, and they could have kept themselves out of trouble if they had just used good discipline and good procedures.
Which is a very important point. Even if you're flying to an airport, and a lot of the general aviation airports that you'll find in a flight simulator, even if you're flying into an airport that doesn't have a prescribed instrument approach, all the modern aircraft, especially we're as old dinosaur as it gets, but even in our aircraft, you can build an approach based on the runway and the runway heading. So it's always best to have some type of backup and use a backup, even if you don't have an initial approach. For example, last night here coming into Wilmington, runway 17, only all it has is an RNAV approach. Well, we are not authorized to fly that RNAV approach. However, in the box, it's still there. So you load up the approach. So you have some type of guidance guiding you to the right airport, the right runway, and even to a certain extent gives you the vertical guidance as well, vertical track error. So, these are things that you can use in the flight simulator world to make yourself more rounded and better practiced for the real world stuff and or flight sim world stuff.
Tools, man. You got to use them. Good tools.
Got to use them.
All right. Thanks, guys. Liz kind of sent in something that's kind of on the same vein regarding automation and manual flying skills. And she found this on LinkedIn. Looks like Andrew Mizzi, Mizzi, or Mitzi. I'm not sure how he pronounces that. Starts off by saying, it was only a few days ago I was standing outside Hong Kong International Airport's Terminal 1 on a cold Tuesday night, shortly past 1 a.m., awaiting the arrival of a taxi to take me home. I was listening to the roar of wide-body aircraft flying past on departure to unknown destinations around the world. Those poor pilots, I thought. A late-night departure and a flight through the window of circadian low. I was happy to be firmly on the ground following a long multi-sector flight from Australia. The pressures of a modern and profitable airline operation meant higher demands on the use of automation at the expense of maintaining manual flying ability, especially when called upon late at night, and I knew what pressures those pilots would be under. On the cab ride home with the taxi driver friend Alex, shop talk ensued. We had a conversation about where I'd been, the type of 747 operation we fly, and a common subject asked by passengers. Just how much time do pilots actually hand fly the aircraft? And that goes on to say, reports recently released claim 2017 to have been the safest year in commercial jet aviation in terms of casualties, a great achievement, but hardly indicative of true and absolute safety. Just because there were fewer deaths doesn't mean that safety wasn't being compromised. Only a few days ago, a blocked pitot-static system on a Saratov Flight 703 and Antonov 148 aircraft in Russia was speculatively reported to be the cause of a crash, killing all 71 on board. The alleged failure of the crew to maintain or manage the loss of airspeed and or altitude by simply following basic raw instrument data by setting known values to ensure desired aircraft performance has been the cause of several accidents in the past few years. So he goes on to talk about other crashes that basically were caused by a lack of basic flying fundamentals and skills. And so I'll put a link to this very well-written article that just basically echoes what we have been saying for years on this show, that in addition to having good autopilot auto flying skills, you have to have good basic manual flying skills as well. Thank you, Liz, for that.
Absolutely. It's interesting with these failures we've been talking about, how long before we start using a form of GPS speed and altitude as a backup. At the moment, those figures are normally hidden inside somewhere in the FMS, but it wouldn't surprise me if the next generation of aircraft have them as an alternative form of airspeed and altitude.
Mm-hmm.
And properly corrected for with a global model that can give you actual, the equivalent of a QNH and a proper indicated airspeed equivalent, because at the moment they don't, but they give you some idea of what speed you're doing, what height you're doing, but not what you really need to fly an airplane.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, that's right.
Back flying 141B Starlifters in the 80s, the other century.
To be fair.
It was a procedure that we'd use all the time. And we would monitor in our cross-check the ground speed readout, which was down on the center column. It wasn't even anywhere near, our field of vision, looking at our instrument panel or through the windscreen. But you'd have to look down and you'd have to monitor, or you'd look and monitor the ground speed and compare it with your airspeed. And it was a great way to, kind of see what the wind is doing and to kind of give you forewarning of a possible wind shear and that kind of thing. And
absolutely,
so it just makes sense to use those. If you have that information, we should be able to see it. Yeah. And I think you're right, Captain Nick. That's probably going to be something that they're going to make more visible for us in the future, I hope.
Absolutely.
Angle of attack, too. Please give us angle of attack.
God, yeah. That was a severe lack of.
Yep. Have you ever heard of this young lady, Jen Niffer?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. She sent us some feedback.
Not sure.
And you'll regarding something that we've talked about in the past. Well, she'll let us know what she's talking about here. Here you go, Jen. Please take it away.
Hello, APG crew and community. It's Jen Niffer here. On episode 307, I sent in some feedback about airport fees. And afterwards, Nick wondered how much it would cost to land his A340 at my airport. And Jeff wondered how much it would cost to de-ice his Mad Dog. Well, wonder no more. I am here with some of those answers for you.
Yay.
Before I get into the rates, I just want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a signatory versus a non-signatory airline. And I mentioned this in the feedback before, but just to go over it again, a signatory airline is one that has signed a lease agreement with the airport. And I think it's usually for a term of 3 years. Or in the case of most of the cargo airlines that we work with, they've agreed to a certain number of flights every week. So that's what you have to do to be a signatory airline. And it matters because signatory airlines get lower rates. So as you know, I work for an airport authority, and we actually have more than one airport. We have one that's primarily for passengers and another that's primarily for cargo. So when we're doing landing fees, those are charged per 1,000 pounds max gross landing weight. So at the passenger airport, it's $3.17 per 1,000 pounds max gross landing weight if you're signatory, and it's $4.75 per 1,000 pounds max gross landing weight if you're non-signatory. At the cargo airport, it's $3.18 per 1,000 pounds for signatory and $4.77 per 1,000 pounds if you're non-sig. Now, Acme Red does not fly into my airports, so Acme Red is not a signatory airline. However, Acme Red has occasionally flown some charters into the cargo airport. Now, I don't know what the max gross landing weight of an A340 is, so I did a little bit of Googling. These numbers may not be exactly right, but what I came up with was a max gross landing weight for an A340-600 of 584,000 pounds. So you would divide that by 1,000 and multiply it by the non-sig rate of $4.77, and that would give you $2,785. Let's try that again. $2,785.68 to land your A340 at the cargo airport. Now, Acme, on the other hand, does have a signatory relationship at our passenger airport. And so I send landing fee invoices to Acme all the time. According to Acme, an MD-90 has a max gross landing weight of 142,000 pounds. At the signatory rate of $3.17, it costs $450.14 to land a Mad Dog at my airport. Now, Jeff, when you're flying in, I usually add an extra 1,000 pounds because I know you're carrying all of that recording equipment with you. For fun, I thought we'd look and see what it would cost for Steph to land at the passenger airport in her snazzy SR-22. So once again, I went onto Google to come up with the max gross landing weight, and then I said, nah, forget it. I'm not going to bother looking it up because we don't charge landing fees to general aviation aircraft, which means Steph wins. Yay! Now, as far as de-icing goes, we're not involved in that at all at the passenger airport. The airlines take care of their own de-icing. However, at the cargo airport, we run the FBO, so we do handle the de-icing there. We charge $15 a gallon for type 1 and $21 a gallon for type 4, and that includes the cost of applying it. Now, how much de-icing fluid you would use really depends a whole lot on the conditions. We do have some Mad Dogs that fly out of our cargo airport, so I went and did a little bit of digging through some of our invoicing, and I did come across a day where it was one of those mornings where there was just a light frost, and we used 46 gallons, and at a price of $15 per gallon, it's $690 to de-ice a Mad Dog. So there you go. I went ahead and put together a blog post for my blog, Tales from the Terminal, that goes a little bit more in depth about some of the fees that airlines have to pay. And I'll send you a link to that so you can share it out for anybody who's interested. As always, I love the show. You guys are great. Hope that you guys come flying into my airport again sometime soon, not just so that I can send you an invoice, but so that I can say hi and get a chance to meet up with you guys. So keep up the good work. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Sure, Jen. Sure.
Yes. Say hi, then send us an invoice.
That's not fair that GA doesn't get billed.
Yeah, what's wrong with them?
That's discriminatory.
Over $2,000. Over $2,000 for my little A340. Come on.
And the de-icing that you were just talking about, that was just for type 1 to de-ice. If you actually put the type 4 for anti-icing, that would be probably another $1,000, $2,000. It's expensive stuff just for our little jet. Can you imagine how much that must have cost to de-ice and anti-ice your 340-600 in Boston?
Oh, I know. They were spraying that type 1 around like it was, happy juice. The type 4, they were a little more conservative, but I'm not kidding. They they were spraying type 1 around, and they were doing the fuselage, and it was just streaming over the cockpit. I mean, it was like a waterfall. So I'm going, oh, for heaven's sake, guys.
I know. Sometimes I think the same thing. I think this is just like using way more than they need to.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the program to recoup some of that de-icing fluid is going to continue to move forward, as we were discussing before. So maybe some of those costs will be recouped.
Well,
not for our benefit, I'm sure.
Exactly. The people that are streaming that stuff, they're
for
going
the
to get
recoupers' benefit.
Speaking of happy juice,
yeah.
I was walking around today. I saw a sign. I've always said a liquid attitude adjustment or adult beverage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw a sign at a bar that said adult daycare. I thought that was quite nifty.
Adult daycare. Just drop
Not
them
to
off
change
here.
the subject. I just had to throw that in there.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Colonel Jeff and Chris both sent in a link to this article. And I think it was Jeff that said something about this story doesn't smell right. Let's see. A row of passengers were removed from the plane after a man allegedly refused to stop farting. A plane was forced to land after a fight broke out over a man who allegedly refused to stop breaking wind aboard the plane. A pilot made an emergency landing after the fight broke out, and the two Dutchmen sitting next to the flatulent passenger reportedly asked the man to stop, but he refused and continued to break wind aboard the Transavia Airlines flight from Dubai to Amsterdam Schiphol. The budget airline crew allegedly did not help the passengers after their complaints, Metro reports, leading to a fight between the men. Despite a warning from the pilot, the altercation continued and forced the airplane to be diverted to Vienna Airport, where it made an emergency landing. Police boarded the plane once it landed and removed 2 women and 2 men that the pilot reported as passengers on the rampage. The women, who are sisters, that were removed from the flight are now taking the airline to court, claiming they were not involved in the altercation. And one of the ladies, a 25-year-old law student, called the removal humiliating. We had no idea who these boys were. We just had the bad luck to be in the same row, and we didn't do anything. All I will say is that the crew were really provocative and stirred things up. All 4 passengers were released from police custody without being charged. However, all have been banned from flying Transavia Airlines in the future. Okay, our crew must ensure a safe flight. When passengers pose risks, they immediately intervene. Our people are trained for that. They know very well what the boundaries are. Transavia is therefore square behind the cabin crew and the pilots, the airliner said in a statement. And the captain issued another statement saying, "I'm the only one allowed to fart without consequence on this airplane."
Yeah, only because you can't throw me off.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Interesting.
I think Dr. Steph would have something to say about that. It's a normal human bodily function.
Yeah, I mean, we all try not to do it in a lift, but a journey in a lift only takes a few seconds. I mean, if you're on a flight that's lasting a few hours, it's going to be very hard to keep it in. I mean, you can.
I guess you'd have to be there. I mean, maybe this person was doing it on purpose, like forcing it, instead of unable to keep it from, leaking.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyway,
you have to worry about hanging the underwear up in front of the vents to dry it out.
Yeah, not good.
I can't believe that. Okay.
Yeah. All right. 13. Sean, I'm a new listener to the podcast. I started with episode 302, but have since gone back and listened to some of the older podcasts as I love listening to the show. I'm currently a student pilot and have not yet soloed, so I still have a way to go. I've been an aircraft mechanic in the U.S. Air Force Reserve or Air National Guard for the last 9 years. During the week, I worked for an FBO based at Dane County Regional Airport in Wisconsin. That's Madison. I spent the first 5 years of my life growing up on Travis Air Force Base, where my father was a flight engineer on the C-141 Starlifter. I don't know Captain Jeff's military timeline, but maybe you two flew together at some point. I briefly wanted to explain my aviation background and why I love it so much. And I was flying the 141 back in 1983 through 85. No, 1983 through 1985. And but it was, come on, it was a long time ago, that's for sure.
I was in junior high school.
Okay, good. Me too. I was just in the junior high school program in the Air Force. Let's see. He goes on. My feedback today is about my goal to become a pilot in the U.S. Air Force and eventually an airline pilot. I'm about 6 months from completing my bachelor's degree and then intend on applying for various open pilot slots at Guard and Reserve units around the country. That's a good plan, by the way. I would recommend that. I am being presumptuous, but I was curious about what the transition from a pilot in the Air Force to the airline pilot looks like. If you have been a C-17 pilot for 10 years, do you transition into a captain slot in the airlines? If this has been addressed before, I apologize. So just to address that in this show, no, you start off with very rare cases or exceptions. You're going to start off, if you get hired out of whatever your previous background was, as a starting position, which is going to be a it used to be a second officer, flight engineer, but now none of our airplanes have those positions. So you'll start off as a first officer in probably one of the smaller narrow body airplanes. And then as your seniority increases, then you'll be able to bid for captain at some point.
I would have to say I disagree with that, Jeff.
Okay. And how would you disagree?
Only part of that I would agree with is that at mainline or legacy carriers, it's going to be much harder to get hired into that position. But with the regional industry, they actually do have direct hire into left seat. So, yeah, because it's based on experience. And if they're having problems finding people that are qualified based on the FAA limitations, they can and have in the past and are actually, as far as I know right now, hiring into the left seat, captains off the street. Now, what what their qualifications have to be. I don't know if a C-17 would qualify them. I don't know if they have to have previous 121 time. So that part of the equation, I don't know. And even at the legacies, because it's getting to be so junior now, you know, you've got captains at Acme that have only been here since January 2017, the last I saw. So it's getting pretty close to being right off the street, especially now when you look at the C series coming on, going to LA and New York. You're gonna have really junior guys going to that.
Okay, well, I sit corrected then.
I'm not
know that.
I'm not trying to correct you. As I'm just saying, as the industry goes forward, there is the possibility, because we're going to have fewer pilots to choose from, and it currently has happened and continues probably to happen at the regional level.
Okay, good. Well, I'm happy to be corrected about that. Let's see. He continues. If my feedback isn't already too long, I had another piece of unrelated feedback. Back in December, a C-5 landed at Dane County Regional Airport. Again, that's Madison, Wisconsin. And during its taxi, it must have made a wrong turn and got stuck on taxiway Bravo. And due to its wingspan being too massive to pass the ILS equipment for runway 21, they got stuck. They had to fly in another C-5 to take all of its cargo. I assume it's because towing it fully loaded would have put too much stress on the gear. No, I don't think it's going to be too much stress on the gear. It's probably too much stress on the taxiway, would be my guess. Let's see. I suppose it could also be related to Dane County not having a large enough tow vehicle. That's a possibility as well. Any thoughts? Any ideas on what probably happened to the commander of that flight? He probably had to talk to somebody, explain himself a little bit for the boo-boo and taking the wrong taxiway, I would imagine. He said, Sean says, I think he would have received a good chewing out. I think your sense is correct, Sean. So not knowing all the details, I did find a story in the news regarding that incident. Crews move stuck military plane from wrong runway. Of course, in the journalist world, runways and taxiways are all the same. There's no distinction at all. In our world, though, if we take off on a taxiway or land on a taxiway, they take umbrage with that. So there is a difference, a distinction for us, but not for people writing news articles. So there's a picture of the C-5 stuck. Well, I don't know if this is the one that was actually stuck, but there's a picture of a C-5 at Dane County. What do you guys think? Do you think that something else happened here or what?
With the
I
military,
think he ran out of fuel.
Ran out of fuel.
I really don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just that they took the wrong taxiway. They couldn't go any further, and the reason why they had to offload everything was probably because they couldn't make a 180-degree turn on the taxiway. And sometimes even there are some runways that a C-5 can't make a 180-degree turn on. Not only because it's not wide enough, but just the weight-bearing capability is exceeded by that airplane. So, or as you surmise, maybe the towing vehicle that they have available at Dane County, even the biggest one, perhaps wasn't big enough to be able to tow that airplane with the cargo on board. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, and I kind of find it odd that they're flying in a different C-5 to take out the cargo. So I don't know if maybe there's not a mechanical issue here with the aircraft. And I agree with that assessment. Not only do they probably not have the right tow bar to push it, but you probably don't have a big enough tow vehicle, as you're saying, because most of the aircraft that fly in and out of that field, except for the occasional Airbus or Mad Dog, maybe, are fairly light aircraft compared to a C-5. So would probably be a fair assessment. But I imagine the reason why they flew in another C-5 is there was some type of mechanical issue with the aircraft.
Quite possible. And not having been there and not knowing the details, we can only guess. So anyway, Sean,
we're assuming it's the captain that made the mistake. It could easily have been the air traffickers that sent him down the wrong taxiway.
That's possible too. Although it's, the bottom line is, even if somebody tells you to take a taxiway that you're not allowed to use, it's still going to be our fault.
Yeah.
Yes. That's just the way it works. Unfortunately. Sam, finally, our last piece of feedback for today's show. writes in, and Sam had sent in some feedback in the past, and I said, hey, please keep us apprised as to your progress and on your flying journey. And he sent this to us. I wanted to update you and the APG crew this past week. I finished the paperwork on and received my FAA Advanced Ground Instructor Certificate. So that deserves this.
Hey, well
This guy's
done.
AGI.
Congratulations from the APG community. And I wanted to also thank you for all the inspiration you've given me to go for my aviation dreams. Next up is the CFI written. I plan on taking that in a few weeks. We'll update you again soon, Sam. So thank you, Sam, for letting us know how you're doing. And that was he sent this in about just a couple of days ago. So we'll expect to hear something from him in a couple of weeks.
Can I share a bit of advice for Sam?
Yeah.
If he's going to do his CFII, which I imagine he will, and take the written with that.
What's the difference, Dana, between a CFI and a CFII?
Okay, CFI is a certified flight instructor, so you can give basic instruction to both a private pilot and a commercial pilot, but you're not allowed to actually teach instrument procedures, and that's how to shoot a visual approach. I mean, ILSs, NDBs, VORs, localizer approaches, and it also includes being able to operate and understand the instrument flight world, instrument flight rules, IFR. That includes flight planning, how to file a flight plan, how to use Victory Airways, how to hold over VORs. So that's what an instrument flight instructor would actually teach a student, which, believe it or not, all airline pilots, pretty much that's the world we completely live in, except for the occasional visual approach. So we all follow the instrument flight rules. So that's what a CFII is. That's the ability to teach that. MEI, multi-engine instructor, is another one of the I's.
And what's your advice for him going for the CFII?
So the CFII, I would definitely take the IGI and CFII written at the same time, because they're basically the same thing.
Okay.
So
what's the IGI? What is that?
IGI is instrument ground instructor. He's got an advanced ground instructor, which is AGI, which, by the way, Sam, I have both of those ratings. See, even to this day, I have the CFI as well, so I guess that's 3 ratings: CFII, MEI. I have all the I's, except for the only thing I don't have is sailplane and glider. So, but anyways, I would definitely knock out as many as those written at one time that you can, looking forward, especially knowing that you're going to do II probably with the IGI, get it done at the same time.
Excellent advice from
here's a question. If you guys, have I heard you guys call it a PPL when you get a private pilot's?
Correct.
Yeah, everybody, but that's not actually technically correct. It's, I guess, a PPC. Yes.
So what is I mean, we have a PPL because we get a license, but you get a certificate.
Yeah, we don't get licenses. We get certificates.
Certificates. Okay. That's correct.
Yeah. And I don't know. I guess just everybody just says private pilot's license or PPL, but it's technically not right.
Yeah, it's
okay. It just confused me.
And I wouldn't even go with PPC. I would just say private pilot.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really what it is. I mean, if you look at your ticket, it's a certificate ticket, which is now a plastic card. By the way, it used to be a paper license, and they've switched to plastic cards a long time ago. But that's you'd either call it a certificate or a ticket. So it's a private pilot license.
And I just point out that Dr. Steph has just messaged us a picture of her at her conference working hard. Have you seen that?
Yes, I did see that
too.
Come across. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, she's hard at work.
She's hard at work. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those mighty nice glasses, by the way.
That's a pretty chilly looking conference room.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, the terrible conditions she's having to endure.
I can see all the people on the stage in the reflection in their
right
eyes too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, anyway. All right.
Sorry, Jeff, I interrupted you there.
No, I saw it come in at the same time. I was going to try to share it with everybody on the video.
There's a way to do that. It's called doing that. That's Dr. Steph at her conference.
There is a way of doing that. It's doing that. Are you doing it? We'll see. Nobody sees anything that you're sending us video-wise, right?
No, that's not correct. After Plain Tales, I came.
Oh, you got back.
I'm back video-wise. So everybody said after Plain Tales.
Well, then let me see. I'm going to do you one better here. I'm going to find it on the application window, which is not showing.
It doesn't work very well on mine.
I guess it's way out of focus.
Share. Okay. Can you see it there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit bigger view of it.
Well, we did when until Dana started talking. Oh, now I'm talking.
What? Are we okay?
Yeah, we didn't want to talk so that our pictures.
Oh, no, I only had white boxed it.
Oh,
White
okay.
boxed it so everybody saw it. Okay, there we go. There's Steph.
She's slaving away.
A grueling time. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, that's the end of our feedback folder for today's episode. And if you want to learn more about the show, head over to airlinepilotguy.com, where you'll have information about the crew, the community, which is the most important part of this whole thing, is the community. Merchandise, the live page. What else do we have over there? Information about the coffee fund if you want to hear some of the crew logs that we're alluding to on the show. Let's see what else, and just the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us out with your hard earned dollars. And social media. Captain Nick, can you fill us in on how they can kind of follow us between shows?
Sure, you can find us on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Airline Pilot Guy. And you can find us on Twitter by tweeting at APG Crew.
Okay. And also we have a group on Slack, and Hillel will tell us about that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel. And I guess until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
So long. See you next time.
Very clever, Liz. She
yes, the conference is going downhill. Yes,
clearly going downhill quickly, or whatever. Nice play on words. Did I ask Captain Nick to fill us in on social media or social disease? I often get them confused. Hey, man, Micah, that can be a problem. You need to sort those out.
Yeah, well, it was a bit late for Micah, I think.
See ya, Richard Adams. He's saying goodbye in the chat room.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Richard.
Adios.
Ivor, I thought he had left a while back. Didn't he? Huh. Okay.
I'm trying to think of a kids' TV program, Ivor the Engine. I'm sure we had a TV. Were you part of that, Ivor? Ivor the Engine. I'm going to have to Google that now and see what it says.
He might have been. Sure, we have lots of famous people in our community. Yeah.
I'm just reading what Ivor wrote here. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. I saved the reason why I saved that is because he does refer to Dr. Steph in a few places there in his complaint.
Yes.
So yeah, Ivor basically sent us in. We're going to have to come up with a complaint, like a complaint department audio clip or something, so we can have that as a regular feature of our program, because we seem to be getting more and more complaints lately.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ivor
Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah, that has nothing to do with Ivor.
Yes, it does. Actually.
Oh, does it?
Similar. Yeah.
Oh, it's the same thing, or
no? It's a cartoon about a tank engine. Ivor the Engine.
Okay, because ours was called Thomas the Tank Engine.
In the top left-hand corner of Wales, there was a railway. It wasn't a very long railway or a very important railway, but it was called the Meirionydd and Llantysilio Rail Traction Company Limited, and it was all there was. And in a shed,
there you go. That was over the engine.
a locomotive of the
A North Wales steam engine. Of course,
yeah,
Captain
a
would know
Welsh
about
steam
that.
engine. Yes, of course you would. Yes.
Oh, so I was just listening, and I mentioned this in the chat room, but I was listening to. Oh, I need to stop my recording. Hang on. Got to remember to do that right now before I forget. And
Good timing, by the way. Good time to stop.
Yeah.
3 minutes, 3 hours and 4 minutes.
Yeah. Right around 3. That's good. That's where we kind of end up shooting for or ending up with every time. Anyway, I was relating my story of listening to Pilot Pip's latest plane safety podcast, and I know that he purposely mentions a few things in the intro of his show, and he's kind of poking fun at me doing
he
it.
wouldn't dare, would he? Really?
Yeah, something about like doing something wrong, and then something about it being professional or not professional. Or he'd also faded out something. He goes, he puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that, see, that was faded out in a very professional way, or something like that. So I was on the treadmill. Yes, I was really on a treadmill. I'm going to the gym, and I have a personal trainers, Pip. So leave me alone. Anyway, he was laughing because I said that I was on a treadmill listening to his show, and he laughed out loud. But I was on the treadmill laughing out loud when I was listening to his show yesterday. So I thought, very funny guy. Very funny guy. Was that one of your files being sent to me?
Yeah, just dropped it in the Dropbox.
Yeah,
that's my recording.
Sound.
Recording's coming your way.
Awesome. Hopefully I won't need it, but it's always good to have.
Yeah, I think I don't know whether it was around noontime and everybody was on their device, but
That
ever
could be.
since, yeah, I think and everybody's course going to come back here in a little bit, but that's okay. We don't care.
Yeah.
The signal was terrible.
It was the noontime rush.
Yes, it was. So I'm going to take and put 311 in the trash because you don't need it.
Nope.
And it's all done. Just like that.
Oh, thank you, Ivor. He says I'm looking slimmer already. Flattery
Yes.
will get you everywhere.
This is the makeup he has on.
It could be the makeup.
I think he got a haircut. That's what it is. That's why you got a haircut, didn't you?
No, I haven't gotten a haircut for a few weeks now.
Oh, well, okay.
So that couldn't be it.
No, I got the haircut.
There you go. Yeah, you're looking fit and
I trimmed
slim.
my beard and I banged my mic.
I need a haircut. One.
Which one?
That one right
Put
that one
please,
right there.
put the hat back on. Oh, thank you.
Why do you think I wear hats? Why do you think I wear hats? I hate my hair.
You know what's funny is like some of the guys that I see walking around are the anti-hat people wearing Acme uniforms. You know, the anti-hat guys.
They should
Some
be
of them,
wearing
I
a
think,
hat.
something I sometimes I want to go up to them and say, you know, I think you'd look better if you just wore that hat. And then there are other guys that have coiffed hair that apparently they don't want to wear their hat because it's going to mess up their hair. I guess.
Do you have kids that gel their hair on Acme?
Yeah,
gel it all spiky up and
not really. I've never seen anybody really do like a.
Look at a captain that does that.
Spike,
I don't
really?
know. Yeah, and he hasn't got that much hair, so you kind of see a scalp underneath it. And I'm going, you just look ridiculous, man.
I don't know. I think we have some rules regarding how our hairstyle has to be at Acme, and I think that there's like a general statement in there, like nothing too outrageous, or like if Dana and I decided to dye our hair like lime green or something like that, I think that maybe we'd be having to explain ourselves to.
I think you could get away with a blue rinse, though, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't want to be a blue hair.
It's a blue hair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being helpful.
I'm dying here. I'm dying.
That's funny.
Oh boy. All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us on for us, a Thursday afternoon, and for most of you, or a lot of you in England and Europe, I guess it was kind of an early evening. What is it now? About 8?
Oh, it was
almost 9
perfect
o'clock?
timing for me. It was brilliant. I'm going to go and have dinner and a glass of wine, and that'll see me off. I'll
Excellent.
be in bed then.
Awesome. Well, good. And just remind us again, you're not scheduled for anything until what? Sometime late next week, Nick?
Yeah, I only have actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days left. So Monday, Tuesday is great. On Wednesday, I'm heading for Newark.
Newark.
Ray Davis.
Newark.
Wake up, Dana.
But I could do a show from Newark, but it would have to be quite late in the evening, the day of my arrival on Wednesday.
What about you, Dana, for next week?
I am OFF on Monday and Tuesday, and I go late on Wednesday. I would be good almost most of the morning and early afternoon on Thursday.
Thursday.
And then Friday, I'm flying most of the day.
So I know Thursday is usually a good day for Steph, and I'm sure she'll be back from her conference by then. Sometimes she has a conflict on Thursday afternoons. So we'll have to wait and see what she has to say.
Well,
And
Thursday's
Nick's gonna be-
sort of doable. I leave that evening, about, I guess, 5 o'clock out of the hotel. So it's, it needs to be in the afternoon. But
So maybe early afternoon on Thursday, possibly?
yeah, going to be quite early.
Okay. Or sounds like
late
Monday
morning.
or Tuesday will be fine for all of us here. But not Steph. Maybe we can do it when she gets back from work on Monday or Tuesday.
Monday would be better if it's when Steph gets back from work, because that's usually an early morning. I mean, sort of into the wee hours for me. And if we do it on the Tuesday, I've got to get up and fly to Newark the next day. So not ideal.
So Monday
Monday's
evening
best
for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have to do it later. Like if you can do it, we can do it in the middle of the day, then probably either day would work for Nick, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Dana, you and I are both off on Monday completely.
Monday, I'm off. The only thing I've got going on Monday is working out in the morning. And right now, that's all I have.
Okay.
Tuesday is a little tighter. I've got a dentist appointment at 3 in the afternoon, and a haircut at 11 a.m. So
Okay. And then what about possibility of Thursday at noon, like we just did?
Report is at 3:11, so I'll be leaving about 2:45 in Nashville.
Okay.
So
if it's
noon, 11 o'clock or noon would be fine. I just have to bug out.
Okay. So we might be able to start the show and then Steph could join us. Speaking of, she just sent us another message. But she could possibly join us in progress when she gets home from work.
On which day, sorry?
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. And first officer Mike's just reminded me, because he does Newark's quite often, that my flight has a pickup of 7 o'clock in the evening from Newark.
Okay, so
I could work.
Okay.
Yep, I could go reasonably late.
Oh, okay.
Of course, it'll kill me on the flight home.
I think unless Steph has some kind of conflict, why don't we just plan on doing it like pretty much the same time we just did today, next Thursday?
Yeah, that's perfect for me, because then I can get a couple of hours sleep before I check out.
And then you said, Dana, you'll be able to do that, and then you have a later pickup on Thursday.
Yeah, I've got. I go out of Nashville at 4:11, so 3:11 report.
So 2:30, 2:45, something like that.
2:45.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I just go have an early lunch and be okay.
Sweet. All right, good. Well, we kind of nailed it down, I think. All right. With that, and of course that means the only way that I'm going to be gone is if they give me my second green slip for the month, and I've stipulated it's got to be at least a 3 or 4 day trip. So I don't think I'll be flying until March, because I've already had one green slip this month. So I doubt that they're going to get to that point. So with that, thank you everybody for hanging out with us today. And I'm glad that it worked out well timing wise for many of you. And until we see you again next week, see ya.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Sorry, the video didn't work earlier. Now we have it.
Yeah.